I call to order our Suffolk Public School work session. Dr. Gordon.
Thank you, Chair Jenkins. I'm going to call to the podium Dr. Cardell Patillo, who is the VSBA Chair for the 2024 calendar year. This is a part of Dr. Patillo's roadshow, and we're very, very happy that Suffolk City Public Schools is the third stop on this roadshow, probably because of his Superintendent Eli Bracey III and me, John B. Gordon III. So, Dr. Patillo, welcome to Suffolk.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen of the Suffolk School Board, Dr. Gordon, I know you all have a lot of business before you on tonight, so as Marilyn Monroe said to her fifth husband, Mike Todd, I won't keep you long. I'm honored to stand before you as the president of the Virginia School Boards Association and also a fellow school board member from Portsmouth City Division. On behalf of the entire VSBA Board of Directors, I bring you warm greetings. I want to express our deep appreciation for your dedication to the education and well-being of the children in the Suffolk City and broader Commonwealth of Virginia. Your tireless efforts do not go unnoticed, and your commitment to fostering and nurturing an educational environment is truly commendable. Today marks the third stop on my President's Roadshow around the Commonwealth, and I couldn't be more pleased to continue this journey with you during School Boards Appreciation Month. Your role as advocates for children in the Commonwealth is both vital and challenging, and I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your countless hours that you dedicate shaping the future of our youth. I understand that the responsibilities of being a school board member can at times seem tiring and thankless. However, please know that your efforts are making a significant impact on the lives of the students you serve. Your commitment to education is building the foundation for a brighter future for the children of the Suffolk City and the entire Commonwealth. At this moment, I would like to share a proclamation signed by the Governor of Virginia, honoring school board members in the state for the month of February and recognizing School Boards Appreciation Month. This proclamation is a testament to the vital role you play in shaping the educational landscape of our great state. It reads, Certificate of Recognition, School Board Appreciation Month. Whereas school board members are elected to represent the interests of students, teachers, parents, and other stakeholders, and whereas school boards play a vital role in ensuring that students across the Commonwealth have access to a high-quality, rigorous education and are best positioned to uphold educational excellence in Virginia schools, and whereas school boards are the governing bodies responsible for the oversight, success, and effectiveness of school systems across the Commonwealth, and whereas local school board members work with parents, businesses, education professionals, and other community members to create a shared vision of success for students, and whereas these decisions affect the present and future lives of children and chart a path to prepare all students to be competitive in a local, state, national, and global 21st century knowledge economy. And whereas School Board Appreciation Month acknowledges the contributions, dedication, and service of Virginia's local school board members. Now, therefore, I, Glenn Youngkin, do hereby recognize February 2024 as School Board Appreciation Month in our Commonwealth of Virginia, and I call this observance to the attention of all our citizens, and is signed by the Honorable Glenn Youngkin. Once again, thank you for your unwavering dedication. I look forward to continuing our work together to ensure a brighter future for Virginia students. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Patillo. We're going to continue on with our work session agenda. I'm going to call to the podium Dr. Okema Branch, our Chief Academic Officer, to do the calendar committee presentation. As a reminder to the board, this calendar committee presentation is a two-part piece today, as the board will officially vote on calendar recommendations during the regular meeting that begins at 7 o'clock today. Dr. Branch?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, Dr. Gordon, school board members. This afternoon, I will talk about our 2024-2025 SPS Calendar Committee, our process and timeline, as well as our calendar options and recommendation. This year's calendar committee, which is not unique in our work, we put this calendar committee together every year, and it's different people selected to do different things and to be a participant. We had 38 participants on the committee. 7 of those were administrators, 8 teachers, and 8 parents, all from Suffolk Public Schools. And then we had 15 other departments and their representatives on the committee. So it was a diverse group from across all pre-K through 12 levels in our school division. This makes for a very lively and rich conversation because everyone has a different lens from which they are looking at our calendar. Our primary focus, as it is in everything that we do, is what is best for our students and how do we achieve that. Our calendar committee had 3 virtual meetings. Beginning in the month of November, members were selected in late September, October, and requested, because we didn't just add parents on, they were requested by their administrators, asked if they wanted to volunteer to be a part of the committee, and they had to commit, as well as asking the staff who were participants as well. In our meetings, we created 4 subgroups of committee members to actually take work from each of our meetings and work within their subgroups to bring back information, thoughts, and considerations for us to plan. Each calendar committee member had access to a shared folder where we have past calendars, holidays, special dates, observances, guidance documents, as well as they were able to begin the subcommittee calendar drafts, so everyone can play around with the calendar throughout the duration of our time. During our second and third meetings, each subgroup would present information. And so each of the subgroups was led by our building administrators, which were comprised of principals and assistant principals. And they would volunteer to lead a subcommittee. But they would present and share out information from their subcommittee's considerations. One thing we all did together was prepare a list. We used like a Venn diagram. We looked at those things that are priorities as staff and as for our students, for our division, as well as some nice to haves. And those are things that if we're able to get it, that would be great. If not, we're able to work around that. Some of the examples of priorities for our group was the full breaks. That was a priority, and there was a rich discussion about how that impacts morale, how it impacts the re-energizing and rejuvenation of our staff, how it helps us transition. And when I speak of breaks, that's the full winter break, including 10 full days, as well as the fall break, to include a full day off on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. As well as we align our spring break usually with our regional counterparts so that our staff and the region are off at the same time. The calendar committee in our discussions presented and voted on draft recommendations, and there was consensus on what we presented. In addition to that, the calendar committee wanted to do another pre-Labor Day survey, which you received, as well as our staff, students, and parents, asking for their insight and input, as well as, and a parent brought this up on the committee, providing more information on what a pre-Labor Day start would look like, entail, and what it would mean for the start and end of our school year. Based on that, Mr. Sean Dickerson, our coordinator of data and research, used SurveyMonkey anonymously to ask these three groups for their input. We did ask 4 questions, one being, do you think Suffolk Public Schools should consider a pre-Labor Day start? There were 5,517 total respondents, and you can see on the slide the number of respondents per group. To further break that down, in asking, should Suffolk Public Schools consider starting the school year before Labor Day, you see the breakdown there. Yes, overall 48%, no, 46%, and then 6% of no opinion. When asked for if we were to consider this, what year would we start? 24-25, 25-26. 88% agree that we should start 24-25. These are, based on the calendar committee's recommendations, these are our proposed calendar options. Now, the calendar committee ended our work for our meetings and our proposed draft in December. However, we wanted to move forward with a pre-Labor Day start. So we prepared with a focus on what the staff would need in order to execute instruction throughout the year to get more planning and clerical days, which was a huge request based on feedback in our subcommittees, as well as when they went back to their buildings and inquired of their colleagues and different other groups. Having planning time, dedicated planning and clerical time is a must-have. It is a priority. And so as a committee, we had already proposed and agreed to have, whether we do a pre-Labor Day start or not, or whether we were not sure of what the pre-Labor Day results would be, we wanted to ensure that we built in that additional time. It was a priority. In this, you'll see the option 1, and it does purposely say option 1 for a pre-Labor Day start because the committee really wanted a pre-Labor Day start, but we did not have the data from the survey at that time when we concluded in December. However, now having that information, we really did want to mirror what we put in for the traditional start. For the pre-Labor Day start, there is a difference though. In a pre-Labor Day start, there are a required 4 days for that first week. And the 5th day, that Friday, the entire division is closed. That is part of the Code of Virginia when you do a pre-Labor Day start. There's 4 actual instructional days, and those days really do help with the transition, preparation, and full launch of the school year. Then there's that Friday off. Another major difference with a pre-Labor Day start, we would begin school earlier, and our last day of school would be the first week of June, which in this calendar for 24-25 would be June 6, 2025. If it is a traditional start, we would start late August, actually after Labor Day, start late August for pre-service and new teacher orientation, and our last day would be June 13th. It is the recommendation of the 2024-2025 calendar committee to ask the school board to vote on option 1, pre-Labor Day start, based on the overwhelming response, especially from the staff, and the needs that our staff have for days where they're able to really dedicate time and planning, and the dedicated breaks throughout the year, as well as the need for additional professional learning. It is our recommendation that the board consider the pre-Labor Day start. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I have questions,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
Looking at the presentation that you have submitted to the board for review and consideration, I see you have the number of staff being 1,435 and the amount of parents being 3,468. Of those 3,468, how many of those are also staff as well? Did the survey give where you could differentiate as to whether this is exclusively staff or whether this staff and parent? Did it have those options there?
It actually does ask in the demographic information, what role are you serving in this vote or in this survey? So it was parent, staff, and student.
So those parents couldn't select both. If you like, if I was a teacher, my child was in a division, I couldn't say staff and parent.
They should not have. I want to, and I know Sean is, he's here. He's able to speak directly to that because we send the communication to our staff exclusively and then use our parents in a different way. We'll send and communicate with our parents in a different way. This is Sean Dickerson, our coordinator of research and data.
Good evening, board members. To answer your question, so it was a forced choice, multiple choice question. So they either selected parent or they would select staff. However, they had the ability to go back in and redo the survey under a different role if they felt if that applied to them.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. For an example, if I'm a person completing the survey who happened to be a staff, I could do one survey as staff and then return and do a separate total survey as parent?
Yes, that's correct. And I mean, when we've done this survey in the past, what we found is sometimes a staff member has a different perception when they're in that role. But when they're in the parent role, they have a different choice. So we give them the option to complete the survey in either or.
So based on what you just stated, how many persons elected to take that option that you just exemplified?
That would be something I'd have to look at.
Okay.
So you would like to know how many people completed it multiple times under a different role?
Mm-hmm.
So we cannot do that because it is anonymous. So we have no way of tracing it back to the individual.
That concerns me as far as when we're referencing data and we're saying because of the overwhelming influx of data based off of what you just stated, it could be skewed data. I'm concerned with that, but I understand why, okay? My next question would be, I don't know if this is Dr. Branch or your question. Considering that there was 3,468 parents, Suffolk Public Schools is kissing about 14,000 or more, well, over 14,000 students in enrollment. And we're gonna drop 5,000 because, you know, I'm not talking about enrollment, I'm talking about completion of surveys. If each child has 2 adults that they answer to, that's about 28,000. So I'm gonna drop 5,000 from the 28,000 and I see we only have 3,000 completing. So The parents and the families are those we are servicing. And I don't see a great number of input from that category with survey. So is it anything we can do to get more parental involvement in these surveys as it is impacting them?
So the way this survey was designed, it was sent out to households. So based on the student's primary guardian email address in our data system, it went to one parent of each household, and they completed the survey. Based on those numbers, it was 38% of parents. Now, when you're dealing with a parent survey, the typical goal with an online survey to parents is 20%, and we're able to get 38%. When looking at climate survey, that's always going right to parents using the same methodology, and that one you're looking at right about the same response rate. The goal is to get 20%. That's the national average of where the percent of respondents you should get when you're dealing with parents.
You have another question?
I do. I didn't want to monopolize
But
the time, so
I'm
I
going to
wanted
let someone else that may have questions in them.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Did anyone else have questions? Emily?
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. When this survey first came out, I think many of us were experiencing the question as to why this was being presented. I know it's been presented historically, so of course I reached out to ask the reasoning behind pushing for an earlier start date in August instead of September. And two of the reasons that were proposed was for a full 2-week winter break, but I see that both options, whether it's pre-Labor Day or post-Labor Day, both of them provide for that 2-week winter break, correct? So
That is correct. And as I mentioned earlier, as a committee, we were already working days and hours so that we would ensure that that priority would be met. That does mean that the school year is longer. It also means that we do not, there is a requirement by the Code of Virginia that we have 180 days or 990 hours. We always have over 990 hours. However, we lessen the amount of inclement weather days and other opportunities that we could have more days out. So we built that in, and we were very, as a group, we were very strongly convinced and adamant that we were going to support our staff in their needs throughout the year. So that is in both calendars, yes.
all right, well, the reason why I bring that up is because the idea was that was one of the benefits of doing the earlier start was a 2-week Christmas break. 2-year Christmas break would be great. But a 2-week Christmas break. The other one that you even mentioned yourself was additional professional learning days. So when I look at what has been proposed to us today, let me make sure I have the right one because I have last year's as well. There's 2.5 professional learning days, and that was the same thing that was on last year's calendar.
That is correct.
And I also see clerical days for last year's calendar. If I look at last year's calendar and count them, it appears that last year there were more clerical days than what there is proposed for this year. So where are we building in the additional time for the teachers to do the clerical things and the professional work as you suggested?
The clerical is actually clerical and planning. And so the reasoning behind that is those days which we've already proposed within the calendar draft would be dedicated to teachers doing planning. There would not be professional learning on those days. They would have that dedicated time for clerical, and we said clerical/planning because it actually gives them time to do grades. Many of the dates are right between the interim as well as before a report card. So we've drafted that in, but there are additional clerical planning days. And you're right, the professional learning days are dedicated days. We have 2.5 throughout the year. One beginning in October for a half day, and then we have one full day in the transition days dedicated to a level. So elementary may be that Monday for professional learning all day, and secondary may be that Tuesday. Then we have one in March, which is our division-wide professional learning day. So those days are dedicated to professional learning. But we also, on those half days, while it is dedicated to clerical and planning, we continue to have our citywide meetings and other opportunities for professional learning by content and grade level.
May I respond to that? So even though I don't see it reflected on these options, you're telling me that there will be additional time for the teachers, because that's in there? Okay.
The clerical planning are the additional time for teachers, as well as those days we allow on the professional learning days. We actually allow the principals to have the autonomy to do professional learning on certain days in their building and split that with clerical planning.
If I can just piggyback onto that, Ms. Slingleff, if you look at the proposed calendar options, the very first bullet is what Dr. Branch is referring to. The pre-Labor Day start has clerical / planning for the description she just gave, but the optional one, traditional start, just says clerical days. So you do lose that planning component. That's the one specification there. And when you had mentioned last year and taking a look at the total number of clerical days, one of the things that we did lose, though, was the 2 full weeks for winter break. That was the part of the count that Dr. Branch is referring to when it comes to the 180 days versus 990. So any adjustments that we make in the calendar, you basically have to have a give or take from somewhere. And the biggest change that you will see here, because I kind of see what you're talking about, since a lot of the options look similar. The main change for this is you get out 1 week earlier. That's the biggest thing. From the feedback that came from the committee as well as the survey data, getting out that first week in June also is one of those high priorities, which is part of the reason why the calendar committee is recommending that June 6th versus June 13th.
Dr. Buck?
I did. Part of it was answered. I think Dr. Gordon answered part of it with the planning days, because I didn't understand the difference in the clerical / planning and the clerical by itself. I did want to ask with regard, because I was looking at it and it seemed to be aligned. I wanted to also say that I remember when we changed years ago, and I think you might remember too, when we looked at the 990 hours and building the extra things in the calendar, we did so because we had people were making up days. That we went through a streak of really bad weather, and people were making up days, and we had some really serious times when people were upset about dropping Veterans Day and kids having to come to school and whatever. And so we had a conscious effort to arrange the calendar so we had extra time in the calendar, so that if we had a bad weather streak, we would not have to add days at the end of the year or have kids come to school on Saturday or any of those other things. And that's why the extra time was built into the calendar. But I guess my question would be, one, I'd like to see the kids come back and get out at Memorial Day and not have to come back, but I would. But I'm looking at, you come early, and I want to understand this. So we come early, but we take a day off, Friday. So we start and we stop, and then we start again.
Yes, ma'am. That is the Code of Virginia as it relates to a pre-Labor Day start. Previously, the code would allow you to go up to 10 days, and then it expanded to 15 days. Now it is up to 15 days start. You can begin before Labor Day, but you do have to close as a division. That is required on that Friday. And our other regional divisions, most of them on the peninsula, they do have a pre-Labor Day start, as well as Norfolk and Virginia Beach currently. Chesapeake is doing what we did, assessing their parents, as well as Isle of Wight, and Portsmouth is making that consideration as well. So that would be the requirement for all of us, and that is the requirement for all of us.
And that was the other part that I wanted to ask about. If our neighbors that we have games with, track meets and football games and those, are they coordinated with us? Because I know we pair most of the time with Chesapeake.
Yeah, and so thank you for that question, Dr. Buck, because that was also some of the things that the committee discussed, having conversations with Dr. Bird, Dr. Lee, Mr. Kabler, and our athletic counterparts. So it used to be you would have week 0. Week 0 would allow for one game to occur before school would technically start. But now for school divisions such as Norfolk, if we happen to play any of those, you actually have week -2, because there's 3 weeks before the school year starts. And the concern from our parents as well as our staff that participate in extracurricular activities or coaching that is the bye weeks that occur then change the schedule. And we were concerned that by the time we get to the playoffs at the end of the seasons, that our kids would be fatigued because they didn't have bye weeks, because they had to make up that time for not being able to play earlier. Most of the time, it's about 20 practices or so before you can have a game before the school years, before your first competition. So we were concerned with that. We were also concerned, as Dr. Branch said, in taking a look at what the majority of the state was doing, what our counterparts were doing. Just talking to Dr. Bracey here tonight, Portsmouth is closely watching to see what we do because of some middle school competition that we're looking at to do in the future. And as Dr. Branch said, with Chesapeake doing the survey, so right now it's really only those 3 school divisions that are left that haven't had the pre-Labor Day start. So we wanted to have some consistency. The last piece is our staff members that live in different localities but work here with us. And if their kids are in Norfolk or Hampton, then it becomes a potential child care issue that they were looking at, or having their kids to be on the same schedule. We heard a lot of that as a part of the discussion too. So we tried to really be able to align with the region while taking into consideration those extracurricular activities. You had mentioned to get out by Memorial Day. In order for that to happen, we would have to start right around August 12th,
Right.
August 13th, which we thought would be a little too early to start in year 1, but that was also discussed as well.
Madam Chair, I just have one question. Is there any instructional benefit to having those 4 extra days at the beginning of the year versus at the end of the year?
Yes, it is. At the end of the year, you all know that we have SOL testing. And that is, it really starts in May and runs all the way to the end of the school year, depending on test and retest, and not fatiguing students and testing on multiple contents. We're not allowed to do that. We have to have individual contents on each day. At the beginning of the school year, our students will get 4 additional days, well, upfront days, where instruction can begin. But during those first initial days, when you're looking at instruction, starting a school year, you're really transitioning students into the school year. You're getting things set up and prepared to launch the school year so that they get into routines, structures, understand schedules, and if they are involved in extracurricular activities, they're already transitioning in. Another thing with what Dr. Gordon was just mentioning, our instruction through our virtual platforms or anyone else, like we do have those in the high schools primarily, they begin statewide in about the week of the 20th of August. So other entities that are instruction-based are already started. Additionally, for the athletic side of it, when we're competing with other divisions who have a pre-Labor Day start, they have, as Dr. Gordon said, a 0-2. They have 2 to 3 weeks additional practices and preparation prior to our start. But instructionally, by the time we get to day 3, our students should be in some and there's a lot of transition that happens when we're starting the school year. But there should be systems and structures in place so that when we do start, they are ready to go. They have a 4-day weekend. Everyone has a 4-day weekend to rejuvenate after that first 4 days and launch completely into the school year.
I just have something to say because everything that everyone said is true. This is not just something that we're going to just up and say, yes, we're going to do it. It's a lot of factors here taking place and one of the most important things to me is the learning for the students, to make sure that from pre-K to 12th grade that there is a smooth transition, because it's going to be different for them. You know, it's a day or a few days, but it's not what we're used to. So not knocking it, but I'm just saying to make sure that we have everything in place, that our staff, our students, our parents, the bus drivers, everything is in place so there is a smooth transition. And so I appreciate everything that you all have done, the parents that have, you know, your committee for looking at every particular issue, hopefully, because you had everybody involved in your team that it will affect. And so, again, making sure that the lessons, the education piece, which is the most important to me, and our staff will be able to get the things that they need so they can teach what we need them to teach. So thank you for that presentation. And then you have something to say? Okay, Dr. Brittingham.
Thank you. I just want to clarify a couple things and ask some questions. So this was based, so before the survey went out, you had a committee of 38 that sat together to kind of put the framework together and waiting for the results for that survey to come in to kind of finish out what you were going to do. So my question is, once you had that framework and you had the data that came back from the survey, you kind of added to, or that survey helped to kind of confirm what the committee was already telling you, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so here's the problem that I'm struggling with, because I'm looking at the data from the survey, and I think that Board Member Riddick brought up a good question about teasing out the data of parent and staff member, because I'm looking at this data and I'm concerned that we have some skewed data. We have a sample size that is not really a good sample size at this point, because we can't tell how many of these parents were staff members. So it appears to somewhat skew this data a little bit, and I've taken into consideration conversations in the community as well. I have followed several different places on Facebook, and I've had conversations with constituents. And the biggest concern that I've heard with this is that going into the 24-25 school year, it's going to impact families' schedules. Like, they have planned things a year out ahead of time. And if we start implementing something like this going into this next school year, it will not give these families enough planning time. You know, looking at us right now, we're a year. We probably need to be 18 months out if we're going to implement something like this in that capacity. But those were the concerns that I have with us starting an earlier school year.
So we kind of predicted, Dr. Brittingham, that concern about vacation, because that's the same discussion that has happened really in every school division, and probably the several times that this calendar discussion has come up with. And that's part of the reason why the very last question on the survey was, if we were to implement it, what year would you prefer? And that was the 87% or so that Dr. Branch was referring to that said to do it in 24-25. The challenge with vacations is people are going to take vacations anyway, you know, regardless if it's the beginning of the summer, end of the summer. We actually have some families that take vacations during the school year. So we can't adjust that based on people's vacation. But we did want to give the option, because we kind of predicted that that was going to be a talking point, because, again, we did this survey last year, and we actually made some adjustments based on the feedback that we had received last year and the numbers that you see. And thank you, Mr. Dickerson, for giving that breakdown. Vacation wasn't the driving factor as much as just the overall plan. And I think in taking a look in the conversations that Dr. Branch and I had, and the phone conversations we had with Mr. Dickerson, the biggest thing was making sure that they preserved the 2-week break, which we put in both, right? But the staff was really big on that planning time. And you all know that's been a focus of ours, with adding new positions and trying to find ways to really be able to streamline that. So that was the group that we really paid attention to. And I understand what you're saying about potential skew of data, and we can take a look to see if there's any other way, Mr. Dickerson, maybe we have duplicate IP addresses, they use the same computer. But we always know in our conversations, one family member, one parent or guardian fills out the survey for that family. Now, the total number that may have went back in and did it twice, if they were staff, that might be something that we can definitely take a review of. But I'm not sure if there's going to be a large percentage of folks that did it twice, unless they were purposely trying to skew the data like you were referring to. But we wanted to make sure that the feedback from the survey, the group that Dr. Branch had working, used multiple options. And they also took a look at, if we were to do this in 25, 26, what that calendar was going to look like as well. But we couldn't put the recommendation forward to you all until the survey was actually completed. So that was some of the background work that they were actually doing. And the survey was open, Dr. Branch, Mr. Dickerson, for a month. Was it 3 weeks?
It was 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
And Dr. Gordon, as you mentioned, and Mr. Riddick brought up about parent involvement and parent feedback, we did how many reminders?
3.
3 reminders to families for them to complete the survey. The same for staff as well as for students. Something relating to what Ms. Jenkins said about the instruction and Ms. Howell. One thing that impacts instruction the most is staff preparation and staff capacity. Our staff requested this so that they would have more opportunity to provide a greater impact to our students throughout, being intentional to give breaks and planning. Dedicated is the word that was used mostly, but we had to put our staff in the forefront as we were planning and receiving feedback as a full committee, not one decision. I'm the facilitator of the process. I don't make the final decision. However, as a committee, that was the priority. And we want to prioritize our staff in getting them the instructional support, the planning time, the dedicated planning time, as well as the clerical time that they need to be most effective in their classrooms. Thank you.
You have one more question?
Madam Chair, I have a couple more questions that I would like to ask. First and foremost, I would like to know how many staff members Suffolk Public School currently employ who reside in a district that, since we use it as Reed's rationale for why, how many staff members does Suffolk Public School employ that reside in a district that start school prior to Labor Day who have children in the school system? Because if we're using that information as a basis for why we need to do something, I think it would be beneficial to know the number, because we have 2,000 plus staff. So how many staff are we talking about here that live out of our city that have children in a school division that go prior to Labor Day?
We'll have to get that information for you, Mr. Riddick. That's not something that we're going to have offhand.
The reason why I asked, because it was brought up. My next question that I have is, what does the law say about utilizing virtual days? Because we were blessed that we had the foresight, and Dr. Gordon continued moving along with what Dr. Whitney started with, the one-to-one initiative, where our students have Chromebooks so they can take home. So what is the legal parameters for us to have a virtual day if we're talking about to give staff more breaks for inclement weather or whatever happens? Wasn't that one of our main reasons for the one-to-one? But what does the law say about utilizing those virtual days?
I'm sorry, were you asking Mr. Waller?
I'm asking whomever can answer my question.
You can answer, Dr. Branch.
Virtual and asynchronous or synchronous learning days are agency specific. And so there is some flexibility, but we have to look at hours also. If students are not in the building, that is not considered instruction unless we are able to prove and monitor that asynchronous instruction. And asynchronous means that there are lessons and assignments and students are working in that capacity virtually. Synchronous is that the instructor is facilitating virtually, that's teacher-led, and the students are involved in that. So it is agency specific.
Right, and it's agency specific. And Mr. Riddick, one of the things that we've been hesitant to call a full virtual day is because we still have pockets here in Suffolk where the internet does not support the students with the Chromebooks at home. So until we have Glow Fiber and Spectrum, some of those other ones that we can say is efficiently covering our entire area, we're always going to be extremely hesitant to call a virtual day.
Okay.
We also do not have all staff who have technology. We learned that through the pandemic that we were able to invite staff to come into the buildings because in the areas that they live in, it's Suffolk, especially in the southern end, more rural areas, but it's not just on that end. It's around the city. Our staff did not all have access.
And that's why I asked the question, what were some of the parameters around calling a virtual day? Because when we say we want to build in more days, and from experience in a division that starts before Labor Day, those 4 days are really not instructional days. Those are days where you are really getting adjusted, you're setting your norms for your classroom management, you're fixing bus schedules and things of that sort. And then you're out again and you got to come back in, you got to reset those foundations again. So I don't see how it's advantageous academically other than looking at what you presented, other than starting school 1 week early and ending 1 week early. I'm excited that, we're talking athletics, but we're not in the business of athletics. We're in the business of education. And athletics is a caveat that goes along with that. And I think that considering all of the other unknown factors, I think this is premature for us to come and jump right now. But my last question that I have is how many my last question, and I'm gonna have a follow-up probably after this one, how many current hours, instructional hours, is built into the traditional model and compare that to the requirement that we're required to have?
We're required to have 990 hours at minimum. With the proposed schedule, we will have, and we base this on a secondary schedule, 6.08 hours, we will have about 6 additional days built in for inclement weather, etc. On the traditional schedule, it would be about 8 days when you calculate it by the hours.
So our current schedule is the traditional, so we have 8 days built in with the current schedule?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm trying to stay clear of interfering with day to day. If we have 8 days on the current schedule and serving on a scheduling committee before, we could either take 2 of those days and give to planning and give kids home because we're still satisfying the law, or I even own a division to increase their days, and this division was in Region 2 just as we are, increase the length of their days and gave more days home throughout the school year. And it wasn't an increase by a whole hour, it was by like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and it added up. So what you all are recommending to achieve with starting before Labor Day, there are other ways to achieve that same goal without starting before Labor Day. We just have to explore it. So I'm going to stop there for the sake of time, Madam Chair. Thank you for allowing me to ask my questions. I appreciate you, and I'm going to just stop there.
Madam Chair. So to Mr. Riddick's last comment there, we could do it that way, but if you remember, and this is probably before you got on the board, elementary school schedules were adamant about kids getting out before 4 o'clock. So if we were to increase things by, the 10 to 15 minutes like some other school divisions have done, then we kind of defeat the purpose of what the community had asked for at the time. The second part about the inclement weather days that Dr. Branch is referring to is we never know what that's going to look like. Now, here in Suffolk, we're lucky that we don't usually get snow, but we have had to close school for flooding. We have had to close school for other inclement weather issues. So on any of those days that Dr. Brown and Mr. Privet and I are on the phone and we're talking about the low-lying areas for buses, if we have a 2-hour delay, that's 2 hours off. And I'm always very hesitant to make that decision because we're always counting the days. Now, I get your point because I know what you're talking about, how other school divisions have had given back days to the staff in school division. As soon as we get to 90% across the board in our SOL scores, we'll take a look at that. But until that happens, that's not something that I'm feeling justifiable to do because we want to be able to use as much time as we can instructionally to make sure that our kids are having the highest chance for student achievement. We are taking those 2 extra days, as Dr. Branch said, of 178. That's what makes up for what I was referring to with Ms. Slingleff for the clerical/planning time. But that 990, that's not something that we want to stay close to.
Right.
If we're talking about 6.08 hours and about 28 to 30 more hours, I believe, that could happen at any point in time. This also includes, Mr. Riddick, as you all know, when we had the power outage at Southwestern. Those are things that, boom, take away 6 hours right there. So we always want to make sure that we have some space without trying to be too risky. But I definitely see your point about exploring some other ways. I just kind of want to give you some examples of some of the things that we've talked about as a staff on why we always want to have a cushion. We always want to have a cushion. We would never want to be less than 1,000 hours. We never want to do that when it comes to planning out our instructional and calendar year.
Madam Chair, I have one more question. Have we taken into consideration that if we start the school year early, this coming 24-25, how many students wouldn't be there for the first 4 days, 5 days? I mean, a quarter of our population? And what would that do to our absentee rates for the year? I mean, how would it impact if we had maybe not even a quarter? What if it's, a sixth,
Yeah, I don't think it would be anywhere close to that, Dr. Brittingham. Like, when you take a look at our attendance rates the first week of school, that's usually our highest time. We're at 97, 98%. What we think it will do is help out for our late enrollees. As the principals will tell you, for some reason, we still have some families that believe that the first day of school is the day to enroll their kid. And so what we want to be able to do is kind of assist our school counselors a little bit when being able to use those 4 days and to give that feedback to the building. We know it's a little bit of a challenge to some of the things that, Mr. Riddick has talked to me about in the past about the Friday being off. But we do not believe it's going to have an impact on having a large percentage of students out the first week of school. We actually believe that it might be a little bit higher because they know they have a 4-day weekend coming up after 4 days.
Thank you, Dr. Branch. Thank you for all of your work and giving us this information.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
All right, we are going to call to the podium our Communications and Community Engagement Officer, Ms. Anthonette Dickens. One of the requests that Mr. Riddick had that Ms. Jenkins had agreed to from the time that Mr. Riddick was chair was to be able to provide a Communications and Community Engagement update, pretty similar to what the board saw this summer during the school board retreat. So Ms. Dickens is going to share some first semester information as well as give some highlights and foresight on some things that are coming up in the spring. Ms. Dickens?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Dr. Gordon, and board members. Thank you. As Dr. Gordon mentioned, we're going to just give a brief, somewhat brief, overview of highlighting our community engagement efforts, outreach, and participation as a district and with our schools. As a division, we connect and engage our stakeholders through 3 primary methods that you do see listed here. Our communication, which involves our public relations, so that would be our mass notification, text messages, emails, and phone calls that you do receive. Our media relations, which are our relationships with our local news outlets, and of course our social media platforms. We do also use marketing and branding techniques, which involve some of our paid advertising, some of those ads you would see in the Suffolk News Herald, and of course our Facebook ads, our social media ads, as well as community relations, which of course are our school community partnerships, business sponsors, and some of our community events. To provide engagement opportunities throughout the school division, we do work collaboratively with our community stakeholders to plan and execute community engagement events and activities. A couple of examples of some of those events that we've had from our division include our Strong Mind, Strong Body event, which was in partnership with the Organic Roots Yoga Studio, which really aimed to focus on the mental health aspect of our students and staff to combat any anxiety issues and things like that throughout the division. Our Developing Safe Communities in Schools series, which is in partnership with the Suffolk Police Department, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, and the Norfolk FBI Field Office, which is a more recent relationship established this year. Of course, our Parents and Partners event and our Nourishing Our Neighbors event, which is an annual event that our Food Services Department has been doing since 2021. So far, since the start of this school year, the school division overall has had 19, and this does not include our individual schools, this is just events that have been held from the district, 19 opportunities for families to attend and participate and engage with events held by different departments that do include food services, our curriculum and instructional team, our special education team, and of course, community engagement. And later on in this presentation, Ms. Tawanda Shirley, our Director of Special Education, she is going to share some of the opportunities and outreach programs directly from our special education team. And while the events from the division level are important and necessary, of course, those parent engagement opportunities from our schools are most important in building those relationships with parents to really push some of the initiatives that we have, like our attendance and, of course, supporting our student achievement. So the key here is collaboration, and while we really want to be sure that we're having the events, we also want to make sure that our parents are attending the events and that they're receiving the resources and the information that we have to offer. So our school division and schools can capture attendance and engagement in several ways. Surveys, like Dr. Branch just spoke of, attendance records like signing in sheets or registration sheets, required RSVPs, questionnaires can also be used, or depending on the event, of course, just a simple head count. There's really no one-size-fits-all way of recording attendance, so we do allow the schools to decide based on the type of events that they're having, but we do ask for the information to be reported to our community engagement team for each event. And we do have individual attendance counts for the events that our schools have had if needed. Keep in mind, though, that the school's enrollment numbers do influence the percentage of attendance. So, for example, an event that may have had 150 attendees could easily be about 50% of enrollment for a smaller school, but for a larger school with maybe around 1,100 or so students, that number may not be as significant. But the information that we have is broken down by school, and we can share it, of course, if requested after the meeting. So as you can see on this slide, highlighted is that number 300. So 300 plus total community engagement events and activities throughout the school division, which is mainly our schools, for the first and the second 9 weeks. And so how do I know that number? That is because our community engagement reports that are due at the end of each 9 weeks tells me so. On this sheet, we ask our schools to record the event name, the description of the event, the date the event was held, and the number of participants. So collecting this information in this format is just a more streamlined way that allows our community engagement team to be in the loop of how our schools are performing when it comes to parent engagement, and it does allow us to determine which schools may be a focus area and which schools may need a little more support when it comes to their community engagement outreach. And because the schools do report the information quarterly, we can intervene a little more earlier as opposed to waiting to the end of the year to figure out, hey, this school may not have had as many events as this one. But it gives us an opportunity to more quickly develop a plan of action. And I know that some of our board members have attended a few of our parent engagement events that were either held by the division or by our schools, but I just want to give you some information on a couple of the upcoming events as well. These, of course, you aren't going to be able to attend because they are tonight, but Elephant's Fork is hosting their Sock Hop Math Night tonight at 6 p.m. Also, Hill Point is hosting their Family Engagement Mad Scientist Night at 6 p.m. Over the summer, we did discuss some of the results from our climate survey, which showed us or told us that we did have an opportunity for increased engagement at our secondary level, our middle and high schools. But I do want to say that our schools certainly have been having engagement events, and so I'm hoping that that perception is changed when we take our climate survey this year. JFK is having their Valentine's Day dance sponsored by their Ladies of Distinction Club on February 13th. February 17th, Lakeland is having their Blue and White Sneaker Ball, and Kings Fork on the February 29th is hosting their first annual Black History Month Chorale, which actually Nansman and Lakeland will also be participating jointly with the school. John Yates is hosting their Spring Festival on March 23rd, and Suffolk Public Schools as a district, we're hosting our last event of our Developing Safe Communities and Schools series, the Gang Violence Awareness event. Right now, Oakland Elementary, they are looking for folks who are interested in being a PTA officer. They're trying to establish a PTA at their location, and recently we've been in communication with Colonel Fred Cherry about possibly helping them start a PTA at the middle school. So this is not an all-inclusive list of everything that's to come, just kind of giving you an overall highlight that the schools are maintaining their community engagement throughout the year. And this information will be in an updated presentation from our community engagement team later on. As mentioned earlier, one way that we engage our stakeholders is through our community relations and our community events, as I just spoke on, but we also communicate and share information through our public relations and media relations. So over time, we have established very close relationships with our local news stations, all of them actually, Channel 10, 13.3, even WHRO, we have really great relationships with. We have great relationships with our print outlets, our Suffolk News Herald and our Virginia Pilot as well. And then, of course, we also do use our own news sources and communication tools, so our own website, text messages, emails, phone calls, and social media to keep our community informed on what's happening in SPS. The relationships, though, that we've built with the media are really tremendous assets in helping us share the good things that are happening throughout our district. I can tell you that since the start of the school year, and I know this because we document it as well, we have had 81 hits, or what you would call mentions, with our local news outlets for the good stories that they've picked up or that we've pitched to them about highlighting our students, our staff, or different programs or initiatives that we've had as a district. So those relationships really do help promote us and highlight us in a positive way throughout our area. Our admin assistant, Julie Paspis, she has access to all of the RISE monitors throughout the division, and so she can actually post news and videos on those monitors as well, so our parents can see when they walk into the building, they'll have the monitors there with information that we add as well as that the school adds to keep informed on what's happening as well. So most of our schools are already using SMORE, and we did touch on this during the summer when we discussed our transition to this platform, but it is great because it gives us more detailed analytics. For example, included on this slide, you can see that we have the total number of views for the first newsletter that went out in August. We received a little over 1,700. And then you can see how many times links were clicked in the emails and the percentage of the individuals who viewed on a mobile device versus a desktop. So the newsletter is responsive. We were also very intentional in keeping our ELL families to the forefront when we chose this platform, because it does allow the ability to translate the content that's included in the newsletter as well. It is also ADA compliant, so the engagement is all-inclusive by using the SMORE. And we can share also with the board members any analytics into any particular newsletter that you may be interested in, any particular content that may have been included in the newsletter. We can go back and see, okay, these X number of families received this information, or this X number of families actually looked at what was sent out. Again, a large focus in our department is that ability to reach and connect with our ELL students and their families. And so with the Paraphrase software, we can translate documents into multiple languages. Right now, we have about 11 or so different languages throughout the school community that I could account for, and that's with the help of our coordinator of testing and research, Mr. Stephen Edwards. Him and I work closely together to monitor the languages that we know exist in our school district. And so not only is the software beneficial to allowing us to connect with these families, but it also is efficient, so it allows us to translate multiple documents at one time. We do work a lot with our curriculum and instruction team when they are putting together certain information that they do want to share with our ELL students or their families. We can translate let's say 4 or 5 or 6, maybe 10 in different 10 different languages at one time. So it's definitely not a time-consuming process with this software. And with the recent upgrade, we can also translate JPEG and PNG graphics. Of course, it does come in handy when we're posting on PeachJar or we're posting on social media, so it does still keep that engagement with those ELL families even on those platforms. PeachJar, we tend to talk a lot about, so I wanted to make sure that I included some analytics and data from PeachJar. It does say 2022, 2023 because it is from last year. We aren't able to access the full report until the end of the school year. We did ask for it, but that was the information that we received. But I included this here for a reason. So if we compare the enrollment numbers within our buildings to the subscribers to PeachJar, we can see that some of the schools have a larger percentage of parents enrolled. However, there are still going to be some schools that you can see do have an opportunity to increase their enrollment. And so as a division, we send out instructions on how parents can enroll in PeachJar. That was one thing that came out of the meeting over the summer. How do parents know how to enroll in PeachJar? So we did make sure to include that instruction in one of our SMORE newsletters. And right now we're working with our contact there, Kelly Brickle, to develop a web page that has a more streamlined step-by-step instructions that parents can more easily follow to let them know how to sign up for PeachJar as well. This chart, you can also see the open rates, which gives insight into the PeachJar views, if you will, and we can see that the majority of schools, with the exception of a few, are at about 50% or above, which does show that at least half of the school population is actually opening their PeachJar to see the electronic flyers. We'll be able to determine the effectiveness of our efforts for increasing PeachJar enrollment again at the end of the school year, but at least I just wanted to give you an overall of how the metrics are presented and how to understand them when we do receive them in June. Of course, as a district, we do continue to gain momentum on social media. We've steadily increased our followers, our page views, and our page impressions, the definitions for views and impressions you all do have to understand the difference. Through the data, we can review the number of times that users interact with our posts and their reactions and their comments. We do try to consistently keep the pages current with news and information and content. We do drive a lot of engagement with our campaigns, and some of those you've seen, the Hispanic Heritage Month campaign. We're doing the one now for Black History Month. Our SPS Present Every Day and Attendance Matters campaigns do increase engagement as well. And at this time, I'm going to transition to Ms. Tawanda Shirley. She's going to give more insight into what our special education team is doing to reach parents.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, board members, and Dr. Gordon. It's hard to believe that it's actually been 1 year tomorrow that I stood before you all as I took my position as a special ed director here in Suffolk, and I have to say it has been a phenomenal year, extremely busy, but the SPED department, we have a lot of things to be proud of, and so I'm glad we get to highlight that tonight. So one of the things that we have going on with us is a way that we can provide parents an opportunity to find out about transition opportunities for our students with disabilities. Our wonderful transition specialist, Ms. Travis Hansen, has developed what we call the Tuesday Tips. So the Tuesday Tips, it's a transition information for parents and students. That's what it stands for, and it's a newsletter. It comes out on Tuesdays each week. And on that week, when that Transition Tips newsletter comes out, it gives us information on how we can look at resources that are available to students. There are guest speakers that come in order to tell parents more about transition opportunities. It's a way for parents to ask questions, again, additional information, find out about post-secondary experiences that are available for our students with disabilities. It is a very informative, informational newsletter, as I stated, and we also make sure that it gives parents an awareness of different programs that students can access and any upcoming conferences or trainings that may be available to parents and for students, again, as we work to get parents more involved in finding out about those post-secondary and transition tips. And again, it's called Tuesday's Tips, and that comes out each week. It is posted through our Peach Jar, and we've used it also to access, hold on, sorry about that, some of our other newsletters that we have as well. So you can find a link to all of these on our webpage or either within our Tuesday Tips or our Parent Pulse. So that brings us to the Parent Pulse. So the Parent Pulse is one of our newsletters that we put out through our Parent Resource Center. This particular newsletter is put out by Dr. Velvet Smith. It provides parents with lots of engaging opportunities to attend webinars, to attend any trainings. It provides parents with resources as well. Next week, on February the 14th, Dr. Smith will be having a webinar on reading. She does what's called Empowered Wednesdays. And this coming Wednesday, there will be a webinar about the love of reading. And it's going to allow you to find strategies that you can use to help foster reading in the home environment for any student, not just students with disabilities. It also allows parents to find out what's going on with our SEAC committee, other engaging activities that the department is offering, and anything in the community that's going to be relevant to our students and parents of students with disabilities. Again, this information is shared through Peach Jar, but you can also find the link to the Parent Pulse on our special education webpage. All right, and then another thing that we have, we were very fortunate to be selected by the Suffolk Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. They reached out to us last spring about a grant opportunity. The organization actually has a seed grant that they applied for, and they were able to receive money that they use, and they wanted to share it with us and work with our students with disabilities on some transition and post-secondary opportunities. So Suffolk doesn't receive the money, but instead we benefit from the proceeds that they use the money to purchase different items, have people coming in from different universities, colleges, community-based resources to have events and sessions and seminars to support our students who are transitioning from high school to those post-secondary experiences such as college. On the 27th of January, there was an event that was held at Kings Fork High School, and as part of that event, there was a speaker that came in to talk to our families about the overall college experience for students with disabilities. It was a really big success. We have another event that is coming up on this Saturday, February the 10th. It will be at Nansemond River High School. This will allow our parents of students with disabilities to find out about how students can access things like scholarships and financial aid. And then also on March the 16th will be the third part of this series, and this will be on disability services. So this will give our students with disabilities an opportunity to talk to different representatives from colleges in the area about how a student with a disability can access any types of disability services once they exit high school and enter into college. And so it is on site, or the people who are on site are welcoming parents to ask any questions. They are also providing them with resources and information of contact people at local universities so that students and parents will know who to contact once their student leaves high school and transition to colleges. So we have a lot more things in store, but this is just a few of the different opportunities that we have right now, and we're really big in focusing on our transition programs for our students with disabilities.
And so continuing on with the presentation as well, we do want to just highlight our business partnerships. Of course, there are benefits to our school community partnerships that we've established, like that with Belk on Main Street, which we highlighted during one of our Good News reports. Belk allowed us to come into the store and shop for those families who needed additional resources. Right now, we are exploring another opportunity with Dr. Brown's team to work with the shoe department on Main Street that will give us that same opportunity, not specific to our McKinney-Vento families, but any families throughout the district who do have that need for additional support. We are going to set up a date and a time so that their students can purchase shoes from the shoe department. Our thought is that school supplies and school clothes and things like that aren't needed just at the beginning of the school year, but throughout the school year. And so hopefully we're able to continue these relationships and these partnerships into next school year, throughout the year and beyond. And in a similar fashion that we've asked our schools to document their attendance in events, we also ask them to document their business partnerships and relationships, so we can refer back to that information as well. As a district, we also continue to expand our community leadership initiative, which started last year. Just this week, actually, Believers Church here in Suffolk presented 4 of our schools with checks for $7,500, so a total of $30,000 was given to our school district. They are now considered a gold level community sponsor, and so that just goes to show that organizations are aware of this community leadership initiative and do want to participate and be a part of it. We push it in a lot of different ways. We mail out informational packets to local business groups. We call them, like board member Brooks Buck once said, we are not afraid to ask for money. So we do let them know that, hey, this opportunity is here. If you'd like to participate, you will become a sponsor. So we let it be known. Some of our partnerships that are established now. And so one question that we continue to ask ourselves in our department is, how do we maintain our current relationships while building new ones? Because we always want to add on to the growth that we have with our partnerships and what we're doing in the city of Suffolk. And so by looking for ways to increase that community engagement, one thing we thought of is we have to go out and support community organizations the same way we ask them to come and support us. So we do that a lot. We ask a lot of our vendors to come, and they show up every time, and they show out every time, and they support us, and they come as vendors. But when they're having events, we need to do the same thing and show up and support, maybe as a vendor, set up a table with school supplies, what have you, just something to actually show that that partnership does exist. And so we have two organizations that we are going to be participating as a vendor with. One is the GLAM Project. They're working to set up a big 2-day conference in August that's centered around hair and cosmetology, so we're going to get the Pruding Center involved. And then we also are going to be participating as a vendor with East End Baptist Church for their church's Community Fest on April 27th. Questions?
Madam Chair, before I turn it back over to you for questions, during agenda review, Ms. Jenkins and Ms. Howell had specifically asked about special education business partnerships when it came to transition. And when I emailed Ms. Shirley, she quickly sent me the list of Lake Print Center, Applebee's, For Kids, the Greater Works Outreach Ministry, Paul D. Camp. We also are currently working with the Suffolk Humane Society. Mr. Waters taking a look at our MOU with that. And we just recently requested an MOU with the Bennett Creek Recreational Center. We currently are having some additional discussions with Goodwill Industries and, as Ms. Dickens mentioned, the Belk Department Store. So I wanted to follow up on that question that came from Agenda Review. Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you. Thank you for that follow-up. Thank you so much for that information, and thank you, Board Member Riddick, for requesting that. It is so important for us to be engaging with one another. And, you know, we thank the Believers Church for that amount of, you know, money that they gave us, but don't let that deter anyone that don't have that much money. There's no limit. There's no amount too small. And we have, and I can tell you because I'm engaged with all the schools, and most of us we're engaged, but there's so many avenues that you can participate with Suffolk Public Schools. There's something going on all the time. And so I just encourage the parents, the grandparents, the aunties, the uncles, you know, whoever you have, your relative that's in school, whether it's pre-K to a senior, it makes a difference when they see you participate and come to the school. And so thank you for allowing us to know and listen to what's going on. So there's no excuse because we are putting it on all our platforms. So you will be able to engage, just go on our websites, go on specifically the school's website, and you can see what's going on. And again, just thank you. And PTA, you mentioned the PTA. I think all of our PTAs should be full with parents. That's a wonderful avenue to support your school and support the students. And I want to make sure that every school has a PTA. It should not be a reason why we don't have a PTA in every single school. So join the PTA, use your gifts and talents to help your school, your child's school, or your relative school, you know, move forward to greater things. It means a lot. And again, thank you. Does anyone have anything to say? Ms. Brown?
I'm over here somewhere. I just wanted to make a few comments. I've been on the board for quite a while. I have seen this young lady, Ms. Dickens, grow tremendously in her capacity as community engagement. I believe you came to us shortly after Dr. Gordon joined us, so you've been with us 4, going on 5 years, is that correct? If my memory is correct. And I have seen her grow tremendously into this job. We have moved from square one way over what I ever anticipated she would do. She is a Kings Fork graduate.
That's right.
We, you know, have one of our own here that we need to commend. She's done an excellent job. I would ask you, how many people do you have on your staff?
4 that work directly with me, and then 3 in the print shop.
Right. a very small group of people doing magnificent things. Mr. Bradshaw joined, I think, a couple of years ago. I know he's a big help as well. But I just want to commend you. And something that Dr. Branch is going to touch on with strategic plan, she is the key right here. One of our mission things, I believe, was that the team is supposed to effectively communicate to increase community investment. And this is the key to the whole thing. Thank you, Dr. Gordon, for hiring this young lady, a former Kings Fork graduate, who is doing an outstanding job with a small staff. And you're thinking out of the box, and you have really done a wonderful job. I just want to commend you.
Thank you.
Because I've seen this grow. This is something that we needed 10 years ago in our school system. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but I've seen it, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud that it came while I was here. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw, and your team, other team members in community engagement, because you're doing an excellent job. I don't care what anybody says. I
Thank
know,
you. I
because I've
appreciate it. I
seen this
appreciate it.
is something that we have needed for so long, Dr. Gordon. And I appreciate you for having the foresight to push this. Keep pushing it. You're right, Ms. Jenkins. It's the answer to everything. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to say that. You are to be commended.
The only thing that I can say, Madam Chair, is that one of the things that we've talked about for years, I know in my 12 years, I can't believe it's been 12 years, but it has. This is the 12th and 16 for you,
Right.
is we wanted to say we needed to tell our own story. When I came to Suffolk, people were telling a story, which was not the story. And now we are telling our own story. And as you tell our own story, people get to know what we're doing. And so all I can do is add to what she just said. It's wonderful to hear our own story, what we're doing for real is now out there. And we just need to continue to do that because it is an impressive story. Thank you so much for what you guys are doing, both of you.
Anyone else? Nope. Oh.
I just want to echo some of the same sentiments that we heard thus far. You are doing an outstanding job, especially to see how SPED is just moving full steam ahead. I'm super excited. I will say this here, though, as far as the data reporting back, if we could see the data broken down into the two categories of community engagement. One is engagement where you're doing it with the community, and the other is community involvement, is where you're doing it for. So I want us to break that down because it's easy to lump it all together. Not saying you did that because I've seen the works, I've been there in person, and I know what an outstanding job you all are doing. But if we are going to be an evidence-based division, because other divisions are looking to us as the blueprint, we want to be able to point that out so they can see exactly what we're doing for the community and what we're doing with the community. Once again, you and your team are doing an outstanding job. Thank you. I look forward to seeing what the coming months is going to entail.
What else before we move on? Dr. Gordon?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Dickens, and thank you, Ms. Shirley. Our last work session report is the strategic plan update that will be done by Dr. Branch, our Chief Academic Officer. Ladies and gentlemen, it was 13 months ago when we started with Destination 2028, Connection, Educational Excellence, and Innovation. One of the things I do want to be able to point out to the board as Dr. Branch is reviewing the indicators, as a reminder, your indicators change from building exceptional schools. So you will see specific points where there is no data for 21-22 as an example because we weren't measuring that data under the new strategic plan. So as we begin to move forward, you'll begin to have comparative data as we have last year and then this year's data moving forward. Dr. Branch?
Good evening again. Thank you, Dr. Gordon. You all will recall that we went on about an 18-month journey to begin the preparation and development, the planning, the assessment, et cetera, of the new strategic plan. Our strategic plan was a collaboration of all of you, and I'm trying to get back to my main slide. Sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. Yes, I am. I talk to myself sometimes, don't worry, I don't answer. And if I do, okay. We went on that journey, and several of you were here, and others of you joined as we launched our strategic plan, Destination 2028, Connection, Educational Excellence, and Innovation. I am going to provide for you our strategic plan year one review, being mindful the data that you will see, as Dr. Gordon mentioned, some of that was not being captured in the previous plan's indicators. However, we've added that and denoted those points. We also want to highlight that this is for half of this year. Some of it is not going to be captured until the end of the year, like the climate survey. So when you see that indicator, there's no data right now based on what we will capture towards the end of the school year. Our vision, as you all are aware, but it bears repeating, it was a great collaboration of the minds here in the board and the input from the community. Strive for excellence in education, celebrate diversity, and be committed to students, staff, and the school community. That is the vision. That's where we plan to be. That's where our vehicle is traveling. Our mission, as is read and will be read again tonight, covers 6 points. Suffolk Public Schools will produce 21st century learners that will become productive citizens in society. We will foster a dynamic, safe, and nurturing learning environment. Partner with the school community for the benefit of students and staff. That speaks to what Ms. Dickens just relayed. Strengthen the school division by employing high qualified and diverse staff, effectively and efficiently manage capital and human resources, and effectively communicate to increase community investment. So what she presented just now actually speaks directly to the mission. Our slogan is creating achievers from classroom to community. This snapshot is each goal, and Mr. Dickerson, Sean Dickerson, our coordinator of data and research, actually created this, and it provides our 4 goals and the indicators in our strategic plan that inform those goals. I will have in the goals, there may be other chiefs or directors that actually speak directly to their data if there are questions relating to it. Goal 1, student achievement. That's our business, and that's what we're here for. Our students will develop characteristics of a Virginia graduate to include critical thinking, creative thinking, collaboration, communication, citizenship, and growth in order to demonstrate academic excellence. There are several indicators that inform this one goal. Again, you all actually received some of this information when Dr. Gordon presented over the summer that captured our end of the year data. So some of this is not new to you. It is from our 2022-2023 school year. Where data is unavailable, it's in progress. Those are things that we are capturing. But one of the indicators is to increase in student achievement as measured by the Virginia SOL assessments. The completion of our assessments will conclude at the end of the school year, and so we will be able to provide a full year's worth of data to you. Increasing student achievement as measured by advanced proficiency rates on the English, Mathematics, and Science Virginia SOL assessments. You'll see in those areas based on the 2022-2023 data where we landed. And so for us, we will be using this same data set based on 22-23 to provide you updates at the conclusion of our 23-24 school year. And I can tell you that we are making gains. Our increase in our overall graduation rate, you did receive that at 88%. Increase in the percentage of students meeting the criteria to be college and career ready, as measured by the Virginia profile of a graduate. If you attended the Student Leadership Conference on Tuesday, one of the primary activities that all of our students were involved in was the criteria for the Virginia profile of a graduate. That was part of the activity, so that it is a part of their daily activities and daily work, and they are reminded of what transferable skills they will need to be successful wherever they land. Increasing diversity of students in advanced courses. I remember during this discussion over the summer how that was a focus, and how our students are demographically involved in our coursework, especially in our advanced courses. Expanding those options for academic and career development and programming to enhance student learning. That was not previously captured. However, we were able to capture it in 2022, 2023, so that will serve as our baseline. At 82% of our students are in our programming to enhance student learning is happening. Some of our targeted initiatives, and I will highlight some of them for each goal. We are facilitating data dives with division and school administrative teams to increase data literacy. What does it mean? How do we impact programming and student outcomes based on this data set? And as Mr. Riddick mentioned earlier during the calendar presentation, there is a lot of data. How we use it makes a difference, and that's at all levels, from the division to our buildings to our teachers and staff, to inform on how we do what we do and ensuring that it's targeted to support our students and improve our student outcomes. Another thing we're doing is increasing the implementation of high-yield routines and math station activities. The more they do it, the more repetition there is, the greater the learning and outcomes. We're also, as you are aware, and as was presented previously, we have tutoring programs in all of our schools. And so our schools, parents can contact the school to ask about tutoring for their student. But our schools also have their schedules provided for when tutoring is offered. Many times there is a registration so that they can plan and make sure they have staff, but we have a full year through the end of April of tutoring in the buildings. But we also have SPS Saturday Academy, another opportunity to do targeted instruction for our students. It's getting the students involved and ensuring that the families know that these resources are available. Our Student Leadership Conference, which I just mentioned, was this week, and our Career Expo, which is happening in May, to expand that student learning and exposure to career and college opportunities. Goal 2 deals with our climate and culture, create a dynamic learning environment that promotes high student achievement, stimulates student engagement, supports staff creativity, ensures school safety, and reinforces positive staff and student relationships. In this, you will see, and there was a lot of discussion about safety when we were creating the strategic plan and what the expectations were from you as far as the indicators. You'll note, as you've received, there was a decrease in the number of discipline referrals and unacceptable behavior between the 2 years. Increasing the student participation in extracurricular activities at the elementary and secondary levels. That data was not captured in 21-22. However, this number actually indicates the number of students involved in different activities. And yes, they can be duplicated. That number can be duplicated because they may be in the Spanish club and they may play middle school football. That counts as 2. So we are able to capture that now more effectively. Decrease in chronic absenteeism, and we do have our Attendance Matters campaign where we're pushing the importance of students attending school and being present to learn. If you're present, it impacts instruction, and instruction will impact student outcomes. Decreasing in incidents of bullying and cyberbullying each year. Dr. Brown presented to you all the number of incidents that we did have in last year, but he is pleased to report where we are right now, which was not part of this data set, but where we are right now as it relates to our efforts to eliminate bullying and helping our students and families understand what that really means and the impact of their decisions. Increasing the number of staff and student wellness and safety supports and programming. Again, that's per person involved in all of these things that we have, all of these activities that we have for students and staff alike. And then that increase in positive student, staff, and staff interactions. That number went down from 21 to 22, as Dr. Gordon explained in his presentation, by 2%. That is something that we have included as one of our priorities for this year, to increase the relationship. A part of that is using our restorative practices. Just a couple of highlights from the targeted initiatives. We're kicking off elementary intramurals, and if you've participated in any of our middle school intramurals and how engaging that is, they have an opportunity to play football, basketball, cheerleading, hockey, volleyball. There are a lot of things happening. Now our elementary students are getting that same opportunity, and that is going to be great fun, and we are kicking that off this spring. We have developed in-school clubs and organizations to give students more opportunities to participate. One of our points of feedback was that students don't have rides. So if that was a barrier, our administrators worked with their teams to identify times throughout the week, maybe a day, an afternoon, for an hour or so. Some of them are 30 minutes to an hour, where students can participate in clubs in school. So it doesn't impact them after school, because some of them work. Some of them are in other activities. Some of them have to go home and be a part of the child care plan within their respective homes. We want to give students as much exposure and opportunity as we can, so we implemented that. We are providing after-school transportation. At one time, it was just for those students in those athletic clubs that ended about 5 or 6. Now our students who are after school in other clubs and extracurricular activities also have transportation home. We're evaluating the division's equity needs, and this is led by Dr. Maria Lawson Davenport, working with our buildings to identify any inequitable practices in our day-to-day operations, in our day-to-day work, in our buildings. As we instruct, as we have resources, what our buildings look like, all of those things are happening now, and there are equity leads in every building. Additional our initiatives, key personnel are trained and work alongside our city's emergency personnel with any official incidents. They are trained together so that we are responding as a unit, as a team. We've redesigned the in-school suspension monitor role to emphasize restorative practices. A major discussion you all had was about the increase of the number of staff to support students. And that's our S3s is one of those, our intervention support staff, safety monitors, and teacher assistants, increasing those numbers to be another level of support for our students as well as our staff, and giving them more opportunity for behavioral and instructional success. We've also differentiated our school-wide professional development or professional learning focused on student achievement and safety. Goal 3 is our human and fiscal resources. We're going to ensure the effective and efficient management of capital and human resources for the development and retention of high-quality staff, sustainable operations, and systems. This goal has 5 indicators, and as you'll note, with the work of Ms. Forsman, our Chief Financial Officer, 2 of those have been that were completed in the 2022-2023 school year. Our Human Resources Department is another component of this goal, and we're working on increasing staff retention. You all received that information about the difference between 21 and 22, as well as targeting our professional learning and collaboration for all staff to support student achievement. Again, I mentioned that we are doing more targeted professional learning that really addresses student achievement. And when it comes to instruction, that's a lot of things. That captures a lot of modalities, instructional practices, and best practices to better instruct and build our outcomes in our students. We have a newly developed or newly created teacher development coach position that primarily works with our new and struggling teachers. That is a grant-funded position. That we also have our newly developed mentor program, which is so critical to help support teachers as they work through different challenges throughout the year, better understanding, more clarity in their roles, and so that they're not defeated when they have, like Ramona Quimby says, a no good, very bad, horrible day. And that does happen to all of us at some times. But we do have people like our mentors who are identified per building, and there are multiple people to help support. Our audits through the finance office, as well as our semi-annual review of the facility studies to determine what our completed projects were and what areas of improvement we have, so that when we're doing the CIP and or any maintenance planning, that we are informing it based on our data. And lastly, our community engagement and communication. Ms. Dickens kind of did this already, but we want to increase engagement opportunities for families, school communities, and business partnerships. And we're seeing such great growth in the connectedness within our city and supporting our schools. We want to increase in positive perceptions as measured by climate surveys. Again, that will you will have that full data at the end of the school year. Increase in community engagement and participation as measured by our booster clubs, parent-teacher associations, advisory groups, and other indicators, as well as the expansion of stakeholder communication modalities. And Ms. Dickens spoke to that about how they use their feedback and data to expand their communication outlets. Targeted goals, working with our departments to further develop partnerships with businesses, Suffolk businesses, and even as recent as our Parents and Partners event, we did outreach to business partners. We were able to give away gifts and raffles and gift cards because our business partners supported our event. It doesn't work unless we're all working together. We're using multiple communication platforms, the language transition, as Ms. Dickens mentioned, working collaboratively with our community stakeholders on more division-wide events. I was actually pleasantly surprised when she mentioned how many events as a division we have initiated, and that did not include the school level events. And so there's opportunities out there for more engagement, and we're really pleased with our focus and our targets to be more inclusive and bring on a true partnership for the homeschool community connection. That concludes the presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I always say I'm never disappointed with the information that you and your team provides for us. It's a wealth of information. We are doing a lot of good things here in Suffolk Public Schools. We're making things available for our students, for our staff, and it's because you all are listening. We are listening to what the needs are, and I appreciate you so much for what you're doing. Thank you. We're now going to recess. We will be back in 20 minutes.
Is she down there?
I didn't know she was down there.
I will now call the February Suffolk Public School monthly meeting to order. Board Member Brittingham, will you please grace us with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Now we will pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. First on the agenda, we will have the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I would like to move to approve the agenda with the addition of adding a discussion for school board engagement to new business.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who's second? Both of us.
Do we have a discussion? Anybody want to discuss before we move forward? Can you repeat your motion?
The motion was to approve the agenda with adding for the discussion on the new business, school board engagement.
There's a motion on the floor. It has been properly moved and second. Can we vote, please?
Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Thank you. We have the public speakers on the agenda topics. Do we have any tonight?
Madam Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Thank you. Moving forward, we will have the report by the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call to the podium Ms. Anthonette Dickens, our Communications and Community Engagement Officer, to provide the good news report, which includes alumni highlights, our SBS Food Nutrition Services partnerships, and their visit to Richmond, the 15th Annual CTE Student Conference, the Children's Center offers internships to our students, the CPPA having a guitar master class with the Grammy-nominated guitarist. As previously mentioned, the partnership under our Community Leadership Initiative with Believers Church donating $30,000. A quick recap on our Parents for Partners events, Developing Safe Communities in Schools series events, and the January Teacher Spotlight. We will also have special presentations for School Board Appreciation Month and School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, and I will also report on the calendar of special events. Ms. Dickens?
Dr. Gordon. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and board members, and those watching this evening. Recently, two Suffolk Public Schools alumni from Kings Fork High School, classes of 2009 and 2018, interviewed with Wavy 10 in what we would like to call a full circle moment, Sugar Rogers and Nyla Young. Sugar is a basketball star was a basketball star at the Fork. And she has the all-time scoring record for the Lady Bulldogs. She's played in the WNBA and became a WNBA champion and all-star. And now she is the assistant basketball coach at the College of William and Mary, where Ms. Nyla Young attends and flourishes as a student athlete and the team's leading scorer. These alums have certainly represented Suffolk Public Schools with outstanding grace, style, and talent. They represent the many student athletes from current and in past years from our school division who have gone on to do amazing things. We are very proud of these two and know that they will continue to do amazing things and represent the school division wherever they go. Initially, we had a presentation from our food services department. As mentioned at our last board meeting, they were going to showcase their fork farm, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they did have to move the fork farm presentation to next month. So I do want to let you all know that. So we do want to acknowledge still the food services team for their recent visit to Richmond, where they did advocate for equity in food services for our students. The 15th Annual Career and Technical Education Professional Student Conference was held this past Tuesday at the Hilton here in Suffolk, which provides ninth grade students an opportunity to interact with career-related programs offered in Suffolk Public Schools. Instructors from the College and Career Academy engage students in workplace activities within the cosmetology and master barber, culinary arts, and emergency medical technician career fields. We do have a highlight video of this event circulating around on our social media platform, so we encourage you to check it out when you can. That video, you should know, was actually filmed and edited by our student intern in our department. He is a senior student at Nansemond River High School, Caleb Richardson. So he's been working with our community engagement team since the fall, and this video is a product of his work with us. The Children's Center, a regional provider of family-centered care for children birth through age 5, has offered our students an absolutely amazing opportunity to our CCAP Early Childhood Development and Services students to intern in classrooms at the Executive Court Center. Suffolk Public Schools introduced the guitar classes to high school students for the first time this school year. And last month, students in the class received a special visit from Grammy-nominated guitarist Dr. Thomas Klippinger, who performed for students, but he also took the time out to work with them. He has several accolades and currently serves on the faculties at Christopher Newport University, Frostburg State University, and Virginia Wesleyan University. We are fortunate to be able to establish partnerships such as these to expose our students to learning beyond the classroom. And so we just want to thank all of the organizers of this opportunity, Ms. Tiffany Carr, Mr. Michael Kamenish, Dr. Jolene Neighbors, and Lakeland High School Principal, Ms. Lori White, for providing such an amazing opportunity for our students who can now say that they have met in person a Grammy-nominated musician. And we want to give a special thank you to Believers Church for donating $30,000 combined to Suffolk Public Schools. They did give $7,500 each to Nansemond River High School, Colonel Fred Cherry Middle School, Creekside Elementary School, and Northern Shores Elementary School for various school needs. They are recognized as a gold-level community sponsor. We do have a special presentation for them today. If we have any representatives from Believers Church here today, can you all please come up? Thank you. And Dr. Gordon, feel free to come down for a photo op as well with our sponsors. You all might remember Believers Church, they actually cleared out our lunch debt for us a few years back. Absolutely, and so we want to say thank you for your partnership with us.
schools had the pictures with the checks. They were so thrilled. So if you all wouldn't mind turning right there.
They're framed jerseys.
And we got a framed jersey for you too.
What? That's awesome.
National River High School right there.
Oh,
That's big time.
fantastic.
So you want to hold that?
Love it.
Okay. And then I'll hold up the jersey because this is heavy.
All right.
All right, on Saturday, February 3rd, we held our 2024 Parents and Partners Together We Create Achievers community event. This event allowed parents and students to engage with our staff and members of our Suffolk community for conference-style information sessions, panel discussions, and a vendor fair with many resources. Some of the session topics included #heartfelt, raising emotionally intelligent children, school structure to home, decreasing behavioral problems, understanding your personal communication style, college and career readiness, the building blocks of reading. The list does go on. We had a total of 12 sessions altogether and a little over 20 vendors. In all, we had 70 parents and guardians present. Those who came out also had the opportunity to visit a STEM mobile brought by STEMpreneur, which is a more recent partner with the school system. Between sessions, they were able to go out there and engage in STEM activities, both parents and students. We also had a table set up to give away school supplies. So we gave away some of those clear book bags, as well as just general supplies that our students may have needed going into this second half of the year. We do want to thank our business partners for providing items for our raffle, and of course, a very special thank you to the university instructors whose funding has allowed us to have this event for a second year. And that same week, that was a very busy week for us. So that same week, we had our Developing Safe Communities in Schools event. The Developing Safe Communities in Schools is a 3-part series in partnership, of course, as we know, with Suffolk Police Department, the Suffolk Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the Suffolk Sheriff's Office, and the Norfolk FBI Field Office. So we held our second session, our Gun Violence Awareness Parent and Student Information Night, where panelists discussed issues around violence with firearms that are affecting our community and our schools, and how we as a school system can better collaborate and work together with our families and local law enforcement to keep our communities safe. We did have 2 families share their personal experiences as victims of gun violence, and so it was good to hear them explain to us why events like this are so necessary and so important to have in our school district. And we do thank all of our panelists who participated, especially the Suffolk Sheriff's Office, who presented or provided free gun locks. And of course, we want to highlight those teachers recognized in our January Teacher Spotlight for last month. Ms. Dolores Vega from Kingsport High School, Mackenzie Rush from Nansman Parkway Elementary School, Jessica Smith from Nansman River High School, Lauren Cross from Northern Shores Elementary School, Carl Ritchie from Forest Glen Middle School, Nathan Hoffman from Lakeland High School, Allison Deese from Nansman River High School and Southwestern Elementary School, Elizabeth Alston from also from Nansman River High School and Southwestern Elementary School, Dr. Amanda Carmeltano from Kingsburg High School, and from Colonel Fred Cherry Middle School, Forest Glen Middle, and John Yates Middle, Abigail Puentes, Elizabeth Browns, and Linda Hurwitz. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dickens. And at this time, I'm going to ask our school board clerks to assist me in delivering special gifts to our school board members As many people know, the month of February is School Board Appreciation Month. The school board members already have gift bags courtesy of Lakeland High School that is at the dais with them. But we also brought additional school board appreciation gifts, including a plaque thanking all of our school board members for what they do, as well as pictures of the board itself and individual pictures and some SPS swag. So we're going to ask Ms. Johnson as well as Ms. Gardner to be able to distribute that to our board members before I turn it back over to Chair Jenkins. So we're going to ask everybody in the gallery to please give our school board members a round of applause for School Board Appreciation Month.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jenkins, as next week is School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you so much. You know, we as a board, we work together, but the glue that holds us together is Ms. Gardner and Ms. Johnson over there. And so I want you all to come and stand up in the middle for us, please. Will you come with me? That's yours. This one.
Some help. This too, right? You got it? Send it to him.
Going back. Thank you.
Thank you to our school board members and to our clerks for this special month of February. As I move into the calendar of special events, and I'll have a couple other comments under reports from the superintendent. As we said, this is School Board Appreciation Month. This is also African American History Month. This is why many of us are wearing African garb today. As a reminder, tomorrow, with it being the Friday before the Super Bowl, please wear your favorite team, NFL team regalia. This is also Career and Technical Education Month. Outstanding job by Mr. Skinner, Ms. Burgess, and the entire team at the 15th Annual Student Expo. This is also National School Counseling Week, led by Dr. King, who's on Dr. Brown's team. Please thank a counselor for all that they do. Report cards go home tomorrow. Going to repeat that one more time. Report cards go home tomorrow, even though many of our parents have already checked grades and hack. Official distribution is tomorrow. As we just mentioned, School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, outstanding job by Ms. Gardner and Ms. Johnson. Running the board stuff on the day is only part of the duties that they actually have each and every day. National School Resource Officer Appreciation Day is February 15th, which is also our parent-teacher conferences and early dismissal for students. Reminder, President's Day holiday on February 19th. All schools and departments will be closed. We will have a special school board meeting that the board has approved for the superintendent's proposed budget on February 29th. As we move into March is Youth Art Month, Women's History Month, Music in Our Schools Month, National Nutrition Month. Read Across America Day is March 2nd. National School Social Worker Week is March 3rd through the 9th. Maintenance worker under Mr. Napier's team is Appreciation Day is March 4th. Professional Learning Day is March 5th, where there's no school for students. Interim reports for the third 9 weeks will be March 6th. That is also the beginning of National School Breakfast Week, which is March 6th to the 10th. Our Superintendent's Facebook Live session will be March the 8th at 3 p.m., where we will discuss and reiterate what was presented in the Superintendent's proposed budget. Daylight Savings is March 10th, reminder to spring forward, and our next school board meeting will be March 14th. Definitely, as Ms. Dickens had mentioned earlier, we want to thank everyone for their support for our outstanding Parents for Partners event. Our great work by Dr. Branch and the entire committee in putting that together. Thank you to all of our businesses that showed up to help support us. Thank you to Ms. Jenkins, Ms. Slingleff, and Ms. Howell for coming by. Also, congratulations to our new doctor in the house, Dr. Catherine Prichon, our Director of Elementary Leadership. Yes. Along with Dr. Crystal Taylor, Principal at Hill Point Elementary School. Both of our new doctors successfully defended their dissertations in this past week, and Dr. Pichon had no comments, no edits, which is amazing. Yes, she almost fell on the floor. She couldn't believe it. A quick update on our John F. Kennedy Middle School project. We definitely want to thank the staff, the IT department, and the staff at CSEP for making adjustments in order to have this construction project be so successful. This included a new parking lot, new dumpster locations, etc. And the updates that we've received from Mr. Napier's team, a special thank you to MB Con Construction for their schedule. As we know, there's only one entrance into John F. Kennedy Middle School. And MB Con has been very strategic in making sure they're delivering things as early as 5 a.m. and picking up things at 5 p.m. in the afternoon, way after school is closed, to make sure it does not disrupt the day-to-day operations of the school. The project is going extremely well, even with some of the inclement weather that we've had, and there are new developments each and every day. I know that Ms. Woods and her team has been ecstatic as they've been watching and taking pictures. Mr. Napier gets reports on the project every week, and as we have said, MBCon is doing a tremendous job in making sure that all of the needs of keeping a school going while a construction project is actually occurring, that's a rarity without having any hiccups. I wanted to be able to provide the board with some updates on that. Thank you, Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you, everyone. Quickly, I don't know if this is an early Valentine's gift, but there's some keys to an Audi that was out in the hallway. Does this book going once, going twice? Me, okay. All right, you get a car, and you get a car. So we'll make sure you get that. Okay. Now we will move to our consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second. It was moved by Vice Chair Howell and second by Dr. Brooks Buck. Are you ready to vote?
Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Thank you. We don't have any unfinished business, so we will move to new business. The calendar committee presentation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As was presented by Dr. Branch during the work session, it is a recommendation of staff to approve the pre-Labor Day start for the 24-25 school year.
Okay, do we have a motion for this?
Madam Chair, I move that we table this discussion, this action, until our next meeting, our next annual meeting, not the special meeting that was called, to give board members time to engage with their community on this change that will have an impact on our staff, students, and parents as partners.
Okay, so you're saying we will vote on this in our next board meeting in March?
March.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
My discussion is I'm concerned with the frequency of items coming to the board at a 5 o'clock work session with the full expectation of making a decision at 7 o'clock. This change impacts all of our staff and all of our students. And I think we're moving a little too fast without really, as board members, engaging with our community. I have received over 30 phone calls about this from people in the Suffolk Borough. And I didn't count the ones who were not from the Suffolk Borough. I just logged mine, who were in opposition and wanted to know what they could do about it. I did encourage them to complete the survey. But I just think to make a decision tonight would be kind of a hasty decision on behalf of the board. Me personally, I would prefer if the board members could go back out into our boroughs and feel the temperature, in addition to the survey that staff has done. And then we can come back and make a more informed decision in March.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes. I, too, am concerned that we are moving too quickly for the families of SPS. I think that they need more time. You know, we can move towards this in the 25-26 school year, but I think to try and implement this next year there's not a lot of support in my borough at this point, and so I would say we best that we defer this vote to March, but also consider another 1.5-year time frame for families to acclimate.
Okay, anyone else? Oh.
I have a question. Is this a two-part vote where we're voting on pre-Labor Day and traditional and then when to start? Or is this all encompassing, we are agreeing to pre-traditional pre-Labor Day or traditional, and if it's new, it automatically applies? Like, is there two parts to this?
Question.
Madam Chair, do I speak to it as it's my motion? As far as the vote?
Okay, sure.
Because my motion encompassed the whole totality of starting pre-Labor Day, pushing it back to March.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a one-part vote. It's not broken up into corners. It's push everything that relates to new business, item 1, for voting to March.
Okay, understood. I guess my question is, if we do that, is it possible to take it in 2 parts so that there's a compromise between approving what the committee recommends and what the limited data shows, and when we do it, to allow everyone to adjust to the pace of it? Or is it a one and done in March, if that's what we approve?
So that's a great question, Ms. House. I think you're going to have challenges in tabling it because of the same concerns that were brought up in the work session about people planning for vacation, since that seemed to be a point of discussion. And with the board planning the calendar every February allows for the school division to begin to put their things in place for the summer. The trickle-down effect is shift in summer school. The trickle-down effect is when the actual days of the teacher work week would start, as Dr. Branch described in her presentation. So if it is to allow the board to have town halls and to be able to come back with additional feedback, that's one thing. To Dr. Brittingham's question or concern about 25, 26 potentially being the start date, as a reminder, 87% said if the board does vote that way, to start it next year. So I know we have, individual perspectives based on the borough itself, but that survey data kind of said otherwise. So I just wanted the board to be aware that it does affect the school division being able to map out our process and our schedule, including summer school graduation, teacher work week, things of that nature to take place during the summer.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, sorry, I'm all over right now. My question is, we already approved our calendar for 23-24. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, our summer school dates were already included in that because that's part of this current school year. The change that we are looking at is fall 24-25 as far as the recommendation of the committee, as far as implementation. So I don't want to amend the motion that's on the floor, the motion that's been seconded, and that is to table new business item 1 to our annual board meeting in March. And that's not to take anything separate or to change dates. It's let's see what our community partners, our stakeholders, our citizens, our constituents, what are they saying about it, what's the temperature, let's bring it back in March, let's make an informed decision.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Sure.
What would be the plan for communicating that we couldn't have already done? And are you asking that they reopen the survey?
No, I'm not asking them to do anything. I'm asking the board that we engage with our boroughs. 5,000 plus people, no more than 6,000 if my memory served me correctly, completed this. 80-something% of that is not a significant number when you're comparing to a school division of 14,000 students, 2,000 employees, and countless parents and other stakeholders. So it's not a significant portion as we may assume. However, as board members, we all ran on going back to our boroughs, engaging our stakeholders. I think this is something for us to act on after just getting this information at 5 p.m. as far as the presentation. I think it's premature. I think we should do our due diligence to go back to our boroughs that we represent, ask some questions, give community stakeholders more time to feed back in with it, because while we was on break, I was receiving a message from someone who said that they appreciate my comments, they didn't like it, making a change, and this person wasn't from my borough. So that's why my recommendation is not to say yes or no to it. It is simply just, can we do a stay of making a decision tonight so we or those board members who choose to take advantage of that time can go back and engage with our communities and come back to the dais. Because realistically talking, based on the presentation, the only thing that is going to change is 4 days and 5 days. You're coming to school 4 days before, and you're getting out of school 5 days earlier. There is no additional academic benefit, because if we really want to do some of the other things, we can find other ways to do it. It boils down to the days, and outside of that, the athletic calendar, in which I don't believe most of us have a full understanding of how it impacts our athletics and extracurriculars. These are things that I believe we should get a better understanding of how it impacts the full SPS before we make this decision.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask a question? Well, just to ask a question, I suppose I make a comment. We didn't just get this tonight. We get our calendars when the public gets their calendar, so we've had it for a week, at least a week, because it was published a week ago. So we do have, I don't want the public to feel that we just got this at 5 o'clock. We didn't know anything about it, because we did. But, and that's not to counter anybody's point. I understand concerns. I only got one concern back from someone, so it hasn't generated a lot of interest in my particular community. However, my concern is this: if we delay it what will that do with the implementation? That's one. If we decide after we delay it that we need to move forward with it, what will it do with implementation? The other thing is, if we move forward with it now, or we delay it and put it off until next year, if the other school systems are moving forward with it, we're going to have to do some coordination with them with regard not just to with athletics. We have governor school programs, we have CSEP programs, we have all sorts of programs that we work across boundaries with. So it's not just for athletics. And I don't want anybody to leave with that impression, because we partner with school systems for a lot of other things. So all of those things I think we need to consider. But I think we just need to move forward and vote on it and decide what we want to do. It's been moved and it's been seconded, and that's just my opinion. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair. We are listening to board members discuss back and forth, but I haven't heard any board members state that they went to their base or their community. We've received calls from those who was concerned, but as a board, we serve the people. My request is simply to go back to the people. Board Member Buck bring up a great valid point. If we table it to March, how does that impact implementation? And I share that concern. But then my question is, why is it that we're always getting reports of this magnitude where it is vital or crucial to the implementation? Just less than 30 days ago, I was saying this exact same thing, and I was discarded. So, I mean, my perception is my reality, to each his own. What I'm saying is, if we are going to be good stewards of what has been given to us, I don't think it would put our excellent staff at a disadvantage to have to plan implementation for August, starting in March, versus starting 2 or 3 weeks in February. It's given us time as board members to do what we all said we would do, what's one of our board goals, and that's to engage the community. The day-to-day staff engaged the community with a survey, 5,000 people. Let us reach out to our stakeholders and see exactly where they stand, and then make a decision then. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking people to vote it up or down. I'm just asking, can we give each board member more time until the next meeting to engage with our stakeholders to see where they stand? Because some people, against popular opinion, don't believe in the surveys. That's just the reality. And that's not saying anything bad about our staff. That's just some people's perception. So I'm just asking, Madam Chair, this is my plea to the board, that we give time to engage our constituents and come back, and then we vote. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, everyone, for their point of views. And I just want to say, I think we all, one time or another, have tried or engaged our boroughs with information. And so when we do that, and just like the survey, I'm just pleading with the parents to give us the feedback. When we set a place for you all to come for our town halls, please come and give us your input. That's what we do it. You know, we do that for your benefit, so we can have these discussions and we can, listen to what your concerns are. Because if we don't pass this tonight and we go out and we put that we're having a town hall and we open up a school or wherever and 2 people come, then it shows that the parents are not willing to engage with us. So it goes both ways. And with all the calls that you've received, have you already tried to reach out to your?
I communicate with my base often.
Right.
And although the information was released as a presentation item a week ago for board members and the general public, it is still too soon because there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know to what extent it will affect athletics, to what extent it will affect CSEP, to what extent it will affect governor's school, to what extent it will affect the other aspects such as transportation and the IB and other programs that we have going on. It's a lot of moving parts that this decision tonight will have an impact on. And the only thing I'm asking, because I reached out to my borough and I have town halls planned already for my borough, and I'm asking other board members to join and do the same in your respective boroughs. Can we table it to March so we can come back with a temperature of what our community wants? Because I'm pretty sure we all realize that this 5,000 close to 5,500 was not a significant amount of people considering the city has almost 100,000 folk living in it.
Are we ready to vote?
Board Chair Jenkins.
Yes.
I actually was trying to hit my button just to make it.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm wondering if there wouldn't be a possibility of another option, and I'm not making a motion to amend anything here. I just want to discuss it. I think if there's hesitation for this year, one of the things that I encountered in speaking with some of the constituents in my borough and also reading online was the concern for it being this August and because of planning and because of things that they had going on and vacations and things. My question would be, would it be possible to go ahead and approve this year's, to go ahead and vote for this year and consider the move to pre-Labor Day to be for the following year, 25-26, and so we put that vote out, so we vote it separately in regards to what Mrs. Howell was saying. Vote this year for this year, maybe not start it this year, but then next month put it on the docket so we're a year and a half ahead of time for the following year, 25-26. Does that make sense?
Madam Chair. That is a good compromise, Ms. Linglove. I guess my only concern would be then we go against what the survey said. And again, this 87% said if you're going to do it, if the board votes to do it in 24-25. I mean, it's always going to be the board's, choice on what you want to do. To Mr. Riddick's comment or concern, so there's several different things that Dr. Buck had mentioned and Mr. Riddick had mentioned. So that's one less month for staff to do teacher contracts. The school calendar that the board votes on actually ends June 30th. Your new calendar that the board votes on every February officially starts us off for July 1. And that's how, when the board votes for us in February, that's when we plan the summer, right? That's when we plan our summer school graduation. Everything would have to shift. So the amount of time that it would take, we're not sure of because we've never been in a situation where the board hasn't voted on the calendar, at least during my tenure, in February. So I'm sure that we could get it done, but then you put the pressure on the staff. And as we saw during the work session, the staff was the one most overwhelming group that was in favor of the 24-25 pre-Labor Day start. So we would basically I don't want to use the word disregard, but not adhere to what their requests were as well as the recommendation from the committee. So, I don't want to belabor the point or make any more comments, but I did want to be able to remind the board of those options based on Ms. Slinglove's compromise that were already as a part of the survey. That was one of the things that we learned when we did the survey last year. We wanted to be able to give the school community the option. Okay, if you have hesitation, some of the concerns that Mr. Riddick is talking about, we can plan it out 2 years from now. And that response was overwhelmingly, no, don't do that. So I think we're kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but we're kind of looking at this from multiple different lenses. And I understand what Mr. Riddick is saying about, what his borough is saying and potentially having this, but as you all know, we had this survey out a while ago, and I know from the email that I had received from Mr. Riddick, when he was asking about the survey, we felt that if board members did want to have town halls or get additional feedback, that was the opportunity from when the survey first started up until today to be able to make that happen. Not saying that the board still can't do that, But that's part of the reason why we wanted to give plenty of time from when the survey was originally began and this board meeting, so that the board members had plenty of time for their own level of community engagement.
When did the survey go out?
Dr. Branch, do we remember, was Mr. Dixon, do you remember that exact date that the survey went out?
That's when I got my email as a parent on the 23rd.
December.
I got my email as a parent on the 23rd of a child that's in the school division.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's consistent.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I remember with the presentation, Mr. Dickens said that most surveys only get about 20% feedback. Is that what you said, Mr. Dickens?
That's correct.
And this survey received what percent of feedback?
38.
38, did he say? So that exceeds, what the norm is, when you send out a survey. I personally have not heard from a soul concerning this issue. I received a survey back, as he said, in January, and looked at it and read it, and no one has contacted me in my borough concerning the survey or a change in the calendar. Dr. Buck, have you received a lot of input?
I got one.
She received one. I think most people have spoken, that were concerned with it.
But I still have a concern that we haven't teased out the data correctly, particularly if we've got a parent and a staff member and that's all being lumped, or they've been able to fill out a survey twice, then that skews the data.
No, and before you speak, please be recognized first, so we won't go back and forth.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
looking at the calendar, if the survey was sent out on January 23rd on a Tuesday, week 1 will be January 30th. Week 2 would be February 6th. Today is February 8th. That's 2 weeks. That's why my town hall couldn't exist within a 2-week span. It wasn't 3 weeks, it was 2 weeks. I received it in 2 capacities: as a board member or staff, for the lack of better terms, and as a parent who has a child in it. So I got the email, my wife and I both got the email, and we got ours on the 24th. So what I'm asking, I'm not asking to vote no, and I don't want the motion that's on the floor that has been seconded to be misunderstood with the other conversation that is going on right now. My only request is to table the decision until March. Yes, no one may have called you, but we know, have we reached out? As elected officials, the people are not here to serve us, but we are here to serve the people. We are to go to them. And I don't know how the attendance at your town halls may be, but the town halls that I have hosted have had well over 35 to 40 plus people. So what I'm asking is to give me an opportunity to engage with the constituents that I have been elected to represent, because I only had 2 weeks to turn around and get feedback from the community. That's not fair, because if it was the shoe was on the other foot and I was trying to give either you all or staff 2 weeks to do what you all are asking me to do, I'm pretty certain that it would be a different conversation right now. And the only thing I am asking is, can we table it to March? I'm not saying we're voting it down. I'm not saying we're voting it up. I'm pretty sure, just as the committee has identified potential start and end dates, they have done preliminary planning already. So I'm just asking if we can table it to March. I don't think it would kill any of us to table it to March.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready to vote?
Ma'am, would you read the motion, please?
The motion was made by Mr. Riddick to move to table the discussion of the calendar committee presentation to the next annual meeting, which is in March 2024, to give time for the board members to engage with the community regarding the calendar options. Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Thank you. Now we will have number 2, the resolution 23-24, 21, a resolution of the School Board of the City of Suffolk, Virginia, approving the policy services agreement between VSBA and Suffolk Public School Board. Can I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
It has been properly moved by Vice Chair Howell and second by Dr. Brooks Buck. Are we ready to vote? Is there any discussion?
Yes. I would like to ask Attorney Waller a question regarding this agreement with VSBA. Not the legislation, but the policies that we receive from them, are they stemming solely from mandated law that has passed, or are there other bills that they present? I mean, I'm all tongue-tied. Policies that they present to us that have not come as a result of mandated code.
I would say probably about 90% of them are code changes, and the other 10% are probably recommendations coming directly from VSBA.
Anyone else? Ready to vote?
Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Thank you. Number 3, the ordinance 23-24-47, an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 26, Section 7-26 and 3 entitled Professional Staff Development, Professional Development for Teachers and Principals, 2024-2025 school year, training in science-based reading research requiring participation by instructional personnel of the policies of the Suffolk School Board, City School Board. Second reading. That is info and action item. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? It's ready to vote?
Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Thank you. Number 4, ordinance 23-24-67, an ordinance amending Chapter 10, Article 3, Section 10-35, entitled Virginia Freedom of Information Act, Public Record Defined, Not Required to Create a Public Record, Rights of Citizens, Making a Request for Public Records, Penalties for Altering or Destroying Public Records, School FOIA Officer, Training Required, Types of Records, Commonly Used, Exemptions of the Policies of the Suffolk City School Board. Second reading. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? Ready to vote?
Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Thank you. And this is where we added what board member Riddick wanted to add. Number 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, thank you for allowing me to address the board today regarding board engagement. As we heard today regarding the information from our Community Engagement Office and all of the programs and things that they have going on, it is my desire, and I know it's the desire of some of the board members from based on our conversations over the years past, to increase our level of involvement and engagement within our communities, also within our school system. What I am asking is that I want us to have discussion, and probably I'm going to make a motion. But what I'm asking is that the board have a more thorough involvement with our schools, whether it's going out to the school events, because I know some of us don't receive the notifications of the events that's taking place at the schools, that's after school hours, to going out, but also being able to go into the facilities that are owned and operated by Suffolk Public Schools. We are, as the elected body, are stewards of it. And I believe it's our responsibility to go, within limitations of course, to go out and actually know what's going on in our school division. How can we advocate for staff, parents, and students when it's not a clear, defined scope of engagement? For an example, in some divisions they have where the board members would go out and read to their staff, and it's a condition like, hey, each board member volunteers 1 hour at a school to help carry the load. I mean, oftentimes, and we have seen it before, where board members didn't understand exactly the workload that goes entail with being a cafeteria worker or a custodian, or going out to the schools. But this is an opportunity where we could actually come from behind the dais and make some meaningful impact by having a presence in our schools. I know also we talked about a SPS school board scholarship that is from the school board. That's board engagement as well. So these are things that we have talked about over the years, but I was wondering, can we put some action behind it, as we are, the 7 of us, are the Suffolk City School Board? And what does our engagement look like as a whole?
Okay, I can speak for myself that I think this week, this is Thursday, I've been to 6 events. I go to the schools, but I let Dr. Gordon, I asked him, is it okay? I'm not okay with just barging into a school without anyone knowing that I'm coming. That's just not because I don't want to interrupt what they are doing, their day-to-day, because I don't care who it is. If one of us go into a school without notification, as a school board member, thank you, the buzz goes around because they think we're nitpicking and watching. But I am a volunteer, so that's one thing we can do. You are correct. You can volunteer, sign up online, and like I said, be a part of the PTA. The schools themselves call me, not just in my district, when there's something going on at their school, and they invite me, and that's why I go. So I do agree that we all need to be engaged, whether Dr. Buck, she goes and reads to the students. There's a lot for us to do other than come here on once a month, and that's not what our bulk is. We need to be engaged, but we need to do it properly.
I believe you misunderstood my point. My point is for the board to develop our plan of action, how we as a board, not as individuals, are going to be engaged with our school climate, our school community that we have. Individually, yes, we do go out and do our separate things. However, have we asked ourselves, why is it staff is alarmed when they see us come in the building on the rare occasions that we do go? And that's because we're not in there enough. I'm not saying that you come in and you stop instruction or anything of that nature. My question of what I'm asking is, can we plan what our board engagement look like? Because we have had countless conversation after conversation on things that we wanted to do. This is year 3 of us talking about a scholarship, and we haven't awarded 1 penny as a board. So is this something, since we're coming up on budget, is this something that we possibly, need to start discussing now? Is this something that needs to be a budgetary item, or is it something that we're going to make a pledge from our payroll so that way we can have it deducted from our board stipends that we receive? This is the board engagement that I'm asking about. Yes, I also would like to still go into the schools as well, but in order to make an accurate assessment of what's going on and what's the needs of the school, Sometimes you need to go in without them knowing you coming. As a person who worked in 3 school divisions, when you know that the higher ups are coming in, you tell the kids, sit down, be quiet, mind your manners, you put on your best PowerPoint presentation or whatever, and you do what you got to do. But to see the raw data in the trenches, sometimes you have to do, our teachers have a surprise evaluations, so we should just pop right on in the building. That's what I'm asking, as far as board engagement. I'm going to stop because I don't want to monopolize the time.
Thank you. Anyone have any comments?
Yeah.
Sure.
I have since 2013. I didn't just go and read to children. I taught reading at Northern Shores Elementary School under 2 principals. I just haven't taught reading after COVID. And the interesting thing is that I volunteered. All of us have that opportunity. All we have to do is sign in online if we want to. I can't arrange anybody's schedule here because everybody here is a busy person. All of us work. All of us either work or we volunteer or have family obligations or whatever. I am not happy with or would allow anybody else to set my schedule for what we're going to do and how we're going into schools, because that and I can't leave my background out because it's connected to me. As a person who knows the difference between governance and administrative day-to-day, it's not my job to go in and catch anybody doing anything that they're not supposed to do. That's not my job. I don't do that. The administration, I hope, is not doing that to teachers and staff members, because that's not what we should be doing. They shouldn't be treated like that. As a board member, I was going to the General Assembly, talking to them about policy and governance and doing what I needed to do. I was in Washington with Congress asking them for what we need, and I'll explain that to you and address that next week, because that is something that I need to be doing. I do speak with my councilman about what we need to do on the local level and what we need to get. That's something I need to do. I go into my schools when I'm invited. I've been at programs, as the chair alluded to, because she's been there with me. I go and visit whenever I need to visit, and my constituents feel very comfortable coming to me whenever they have an issue. So there's not a problem with communicating with them. We may engage in different ways, but we do engage. I don't think that's for anyone else to determine. That's for you to determine with your constituents. And if you work well doing whatever it is you do, that's good if it's effective. I don't arrange how you do it. I will say this, and I don't usually even go there, but I don't know who hasn't given a penny. I do believe, Dr. Gordon, I gave you a check last year for a student scholarship, and you acknowledged it at graduation. So I don't know who's not doing what, because it doesn't matter who's not doing what. I don't know where we came up with that, because the board didn't decide we give scholarships to people. I just did that because that was my school. I felt, my high school, and I'm proud of my students. That's something we can decide to do as individuals. And I don't think that's something that the board has to do. But I will say this, as we engage with people, we have 7 different communities with different needs and different opportunities for engagement. And we know our people if we know our people, and we engage with our people in the ways that we need to engage with them. We can do that. We've done it. We've been successful. At least for 3 terms, I've been successful at it because people sent me back 3 times. So I think I figured that out. I think if we just concentrate on what it is we need to do, we can do that. I really do. And I don't have a problem with sitting down and discussing those kinds of things. As a leader and a person who's taught leaders for over 30 years, if a person is not teaching in their classroom, trust me, you can find out without tipping up on them. Okay? Just know that I know how to do that. As a person who is an instructional leader and who knows how to evaluate them, you can catch them, and not by tipping up on them. They'll mess it up in your presence when they know you're coming. I just think that we have gotten far afield from what we're supposed to be doing right now. And I don't know about this engagement topic or what we hope to do, but all of us can go in our schools. All I've ever been asked to do in the past 12 years is tell the superintendent that I want to go over to visit a school. And that's what I do when I go to a school. If I want to volunteer, I sign up just like everybody else does, and I volunteer. And I've done it now for 12 years. I get invited all the time. The principals in my area just say, come on over. And when I go over, I tell the superintendent I want to go over, and this is why I'm going over. And that's just respect and following policy, following our practice, rather. And that's what I do. So I don't have a problem with that. And you all wanted an open discussion, this is mine. And that's the way I feel comfortable, and that's what I will do with regard to the people that I represent, because I trust and respect the teachers who teach in my area, and I'm not going into the building to try to catch them doing anything.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I want to reiterate what I asked, because somewhere along the lines, my requests have been misconstrued. But in listening to the response from board members, there's a lot of I. The request wasn't for I, it was for we as a board. If we are going to govern, and we're asking our superintendent and his staff to have school engagement and community engagement. And if you go back to when we talked about this, I was saying it then, that as board members, we have to be engaged with our community. We, as a board, have to be engaged. Once upon a time, this school board did tours of the school division prior to the school start. They got on a bus and rode around the city. We don't do that anymore. You have board members who have never been to the southern end of the city, so they don't understand when you're making comments about my constituents. And tonight, a perfect example, the southern end may not have access to Wi-Fi. But if you don't travel there often or don't have relatives that way, it's not in the scope of your norm to know about these things. I'm not asking board members to be myopic, because that's what caused the fall of the Greek city-states. What I'm asking the board members to do is for us to act as a unit. And because I guess this is the narrative board members wanted me to go with, then I guess I will move that board members are allowed 1 week per quarter to enter into the school systems and access all real property owned or leased by Suffolk Public Schools. Not to interfere with the day-to-day, but to do a walkthrough. That's my motion.
I second that motion.
There's no more discussion?
Yes. Madam Chair, so I'll need more information on this, because when we say that a school board member is allowed to go into a school and do a walkthrough, that sounds like investigation. That sounds like interfering in day-to-day operations. Because if anything is seen or discussed, then it will come back to the superintendent anyway. Board members shouldn't be meeting with teachers. Board members shouldn't be meeting with principals. It's governance and policy. And I'm really concerned that we are now potentially entering into a gray area. And school board norms and protocols will have to be adjusted. Policies will have to be adjusted. This isn't something that can be taken with short notice without me knowing, our team knowing exactly what does that mean. 1 week of being able to go into the schools, what does that look like? If it is going into the schools to volunteer or to, read or do things of that nature, I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem, Mr. Riddick, for what you said all the way up until the pop in on folks. We can't do that. We just can't do that. That creates an entirely new dynamic of the crossover between school board responsibilities and staff responsibilities. And then once you do that, then the staff that is in the school will not be able to focus in on their jobs, because they're always going to wonder, are they going to be the ones that's being reported for something? And that's not the board's purview. And so if we're going to have this discussion, I would need to see some things in writing specifically on what that looks like before we can potentially have the board to vote on that, potentially without having any input from the staff that it affects.
Madam Chair,
So you have something different?
that was what I was trying to do. The board members took it and made into what the motion was, and I just, because the narrative was already painted, I gave the motion as to what you were saying I was saying. What I was asking for us to come together and put together a thorough plan of what board engagement would look like. But instead of it, I mean, it was being spun in another way. So the motion is on the floor. It's the will of the board as to whether we want to vote it up or down or not.
Okay, we're ready to vote.
Board members, please vote.
Madam Chair, could the motion be read again?
Okay. Could you read the motion again, please?
Board Member Riddick moved and Dr. Brittingham seconded the motion that board members be allowed to access Suffolk Public Schools property rented and all property of Suffolk Public Schools to do a walkthrough 1 week out of each quarter.
Thank you. We ready to vote?
I'm still waiting on 2 more votes, Mr. Riddick and Ms. Byram. Motion passed.
Okay, now we have public speakers on non-agenda topics.
It is the intent of the school board to ensure that the affairs of the board be conducted in an open and orderly manner, that all persons desiring to address the board are afforded an opportunity to do so in the order in which they sign up to speak, that persons in attendance may observe and hear the proceedings of the board without distraction, and that the members of the board and board employees are able to transact the business of the board with minimal disruption. Any persons addressing the board shall, 1, confine their comments to matters germane to services, policies, and affairs of the school board or Suffolk Public Schools. 2, refrain from words or statements which, from their usual construction and common acceptance, are construed as insult and tend to incite violence or breach of the peace. 3, refrain from obscenity, vulgarity, or other breach of respect. 4, comply with the time limit for public comment as set by the board, which can be up to 5 minutes, unless the board, through the exercise of its discretion, decides to allow less than 5 minutes for public comment. 5, refrain from cumulative or repetitive remarks. And 6, refrain from making any comment regarding any pending student discipline or employee grievance matters. The appropriate form for such matters is the applicable administrative hearing provided by state law, or where appropriate, court proceeding. Persons must not engage in disorderly, disruptive, or boisterous conduct, such as, but not limited to, making noise, use of profane language or obscene gestures, yelling or similar demonstrations that interrupts or disturbs the peace and good order of the meeting. Persons addressing the board may deliver to the board or its clerk written materials including reports, statements, exhibits, letters, or signed petitions, and may also make use of any chart or graph during their verbal presentation. The school board welcomes comments from the public as appropriate. Board members will listen to public comment but will not comment, deliberate, or take action on them. The school board chair may direct the superintendent to investigate items and report back to the school board at a subsequent meeting. The chair or other presiding officer shall preserve decorum and shall decide all questions of public order subject to appeal to the board. At the request of the chair, a police officer shall act as sergeant-at-arms at tonight's board meeting. That officer shall, under the direction of the chair or other presiding officer, have charge of the meeting area, the waiting areas and corridors adjacent thereto, and shall prevent disorder or interruption of the business of the board. Our first speaker is Jonathan Powell regarding projected improvements with SPS and budget formulation.
Mr. Powell? Do we have the clock on the screen? You said it back at 5, please. Okay, Mr. Powell.
Jonathan Powell, 718 Hosier Road. "21 seconds. 21 seconds of my life that I cannot get back. 21 seconds that the board of SPS cannot be restored. The 21 seconds that I waited represents the 21 days that my FOIA request has gone unanswered, 21 days of information that is part of a public record that should have been supplied to me, the taxpayer and citizen, the stakeholder, the investor, the constituent in the actions, success, or failures of SPS. I simply followed your policy regarding information that should have been readily available and released to help me supply my suggestions for the cost savings, supplied unused funds to areas of need within the school division, and celebrate that would have a positive effect on day-to-day operations, possibly. Know that contract requirements are fulfilled and introduce new strategies for operational efficiency that may not have been thought of, introduced, and or considered. I'm asking for the FOIA requested information so that this citizen, this investor, this stakeholder, this taxpayer can submit input for additional judicial execution of SPS budgeted funds. I heard the approval of the action tonight as item number 4 was approved about FOIA information, the FOIA officer. I am trying to see if this can be complied to so that as I follow the supplied instructions that Suffolk Public Schools can do the same. Lastly, there are issues within the Suffolk Public Schools that are mass casualty events that there are no fact-finding, no failures, no successes that have been discussed by this board or within the SPS system. The JFK catastrophe that I witnessed and waited on East Washington Street for 48 minutes just to be able to turn around should have been discussed by now. The catastrophe that was on Kings Fork High School should have been discussed by now. How is the plan being modified? Has the planning committee even met to discuss these issues? These are the type of things that the school board should consider. Y'all say you're here for the citizens and the school and the success of the 14,000 plus students. I don't see that action being true. So I'm asking the board to please take the time to make sure that my tax dollars, your stipends, the citizens, staff, teachers are not only safe, but also the best plan forward for their success in education and activity within this region can be seen. Thank you so much for your consideration and time.
Thank you. Now we will have business by board members. I'm going to start with Mrs. Byram.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. We heard a lot of excellent presentations during the work session. I want to again thank those that participated and brought us information. We spent a lot of time discussing things and comments were made and so forth. Thank you, Dr. Branch, for what you brought to us about the strategic plan and also the calendar information, which was very detailed. And thank you, Ms. Dickens, for your excellent presentation on community engagement and where we stand with that. I want to congratulate the teachers that are in the spotlight this month, those that are going beyond the call of duty as usual to help our students and Suffolk Public Schools. A special thank you again to Believers Church for taking such a great move to support our school system and our students. $30,000 is a lot of money, and to lead the way for others, I hope that will come forward and volunteer time and money to help our schools and especially our students. And a special thank you to Ms. Neighbors and the Center for Production and Performing Arts at Lakeland for exposing our students to Grammy Award-winning nominated musicians. Things like this we'd never heard of in Suffolk just a few years ago, and those things are now becoming part of our everyday occurrence. Thank you to all of them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Buck?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a wonderful opportunity, and I was trying to pull up the music. Of course, you joined me when I attended a program at Colonel Fred Cherry Middle School. They received another an accolade for being a Purple Star school, and I had hoped to pull up the music. They have a phenomenal band, and if you have never heard them, you should hear them play. I see one of my music friends out there in the audience in her beautiful blue and white, and I know she would enjoy the music. Mrs. Mayo, welcome to your former home. The music was just beautiful. Listening to those young people play and do a salute to Colonel Fred Cherry, they were just amazing. So I got the opportunity to do that, as well as to attend some of the many activities that our students have the opportunity to be exposed to. But as I listened to the accolades that we received from the Navy captain who spoke, he talked about the kindnesses, the many kindnesses that we pay to military children who come to our district. And as a retired military wife and military mom and member of a military family, it really makes my heart feel good to know that our school system welcomes the children, and the children adjust in the way that they adjust. So I'm very proud of them. I want to thank Believers Church, because every one of the schools where I have children from my borough going to schools received one of those awards. So I want to do a special thank you, even though Mrs. Byram has. And to those of you who work for us, I in no way want to creep up on you doing anything but to say thank you for the work that you do, because you do an excellent job. And it takes a lot to do an excellent job, and sometimes not get a thank you for doing an excellent job. So I want to say thank you for the work that you do. It's wonderful to hear your stories and to know the kinds of things you do. And again, I'll say, as I said earlier today, a lot of people enjoy giving bad news and saying ugly things, but to hear the good news and the real stories of what goes on in Suffolk Public Schools, that really warms my heart. So thank you so much for all that you do. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Slingloff.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Gordon and his team and Lakeland High School, whoever it was behind these gifts that we received tonight. I'm very grateful. As Board Chair Riddick said, I'm not sure that we're deserving of it, but we're very grateful for it. So a couple different things have taken place since the last meeting. I did attend the Parents and Partners Day at Kings Fork Middle School, and it was fantastic. I love going to that. I am hoping, again, that next year that we'll have more parents that will be engaged and show up, because there's so many opportunities to meet our partners in the community, to meet leaders within the school system, teachers and administrators, and to participate in sessions that are very informative. So I want to thank Dr. Branch and everybody that was involved in pulling that together, because I know it took a lot of time and it was a lot of effort, and you gave of your Saturday to do that, so I want to thank you for that. I also participated this week in the CTE Professional Student Conference, which again was one of the first events that I participated in last year as a brand new board member. So I was eager to go this year and was thrilled with the whole event. So I want to thank the team, Mr. Skinner and his team, for pulling that together, and Caitlin Leitner, who also helped pull that together, and Ms. Parker. It was a fantastic event. The kids were excited. I loved getting to talk to the kids and hearing their genuine, sincere earnesty in just learning. And they were very excited and eager without really knowing exactly what they were going to experience, but they engaged. In the opening session, we had an opportunity to do some teamwork projects together and building a drone, and that was super fun. So thank you, everybody that pulled that off, because it was a great event, and I recommend that everybody try to attend next year from the board, if possible. Also participated in my first finance committee as a part of the standing committee for the school board, and I want to thank Ms. Forsman and her team for their patience as I asked questions, and I'm eager to learn, and I'm looking forward to walking alongside of them in this process. And the final thing that I participated in was Noah Webster Foundation training for school board members just a couple weeks ago. I was fortunate enough to receive a scholarship to attend for 2 days, and just to give you an idea, we had several seminars that were fantastic and very encouraging, very informative. The topics that we discussed were things such as leadership concepts for school board members, bridge building in your district, youth mental health, addressing the youth mental health crisis, addressing FOIA, and reviewing policy. It was very, very informative. I was grateful to be a part of it, and I look forward to going next year. So the final thing that I will say is I want to remind everybody, February 29th is the budget meeting that we are having, the special meeting for the budget. So I'm hoping that anybody who hears this, anybody who reviews this or watches this in the next couple days will be reminded of that. Put it on your calendar to come, participate, listen, help us to speak with your representative from your borough. Help us to look at the questions and the things that you have concerning the budget so that we can better represent and serve you. So thank you so much, and you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Board Member Riddick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to just say a continued thanks to the Suffolkians who have entrusted in me to do my job and represent them. It brings me great joy to continue to serve you as I have been doing for the last 5 consecutive years. I want to shout out 3 of our junior Bulldogs from one of the second-class Bulldogs. Mr. Jaden Seward of Kingsworth High School, Mr. Devin Ruffin of Kings Fork High School, and Mr. Xavier Jury of Kings Fork High Schools. These students work within our food service program. I'm going to term it as the pre-apprentice program. It brings me great joy because this was one of the things that I ran on in my very first campaign, establishing a pre-apprentice program. And no, I can't take credit for it, but I would like to say I helped along the way. And it brings me great joy also as I was talking with some of the staff. One of the successes of the program is we had a student from Suffolk Public Schools who is working for SPS in our shop office. So it is not only just teaching them skills and then telling them to wait until you get older. No, you get on-the-job training that leads into paid positions, and they're being paid now. That is definitely a major leap in the right direction. I believe we're one of the few school divisions in Region 2 that are doing those type of things. I, too, also attended the event last week. The name just slipped my mind, at Kings Fork, Parents and Partners at Kings Fork Middle School. It was a great event. There were a lot of vendors present. I was so blown away by the SPED department. Miss Shirley, I have to sing your praises. Connecting our stakeholders to resources to better serve their families is what it's all about. I love how the SPED department was being engaging with all of the parents that was there. I mean, it was an outstanding presence from SPS. The community got a chance to sample the excellent food that SPS served its students by the way of the pizza that Dr. Whiting's staff had. No, I didn't get any. Dr. Branch had another engagement. They know I love the pizza. It was just outstanding. SPS has it going on, and we are moving in the right direction, and I thank Madam Chair for doing an outstanding job as she leads us going forward. And we're going to continue to work together to do what we have to do to make sure SPS remains the premier school division in the Commonwealth. I do ask you all to please stay tuned. The announcement for the town hall in the Suffolk Borough will be coming out in 2 days. We're working on the last final logistics for the location, but we are going to do it. And we are also in the Suffolk Borough, I will be starting a homework help center that will be commencing in March. So if there are any volunteers who would like to tutor in the areas of reading, math, we would love to have you. You do have to pass a background check, but we would love to have you a part of our team. Once again, thank you for this opportunity to serve, and I look forward to continue to serve you going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Burnham?
Thank you. I want to start by thanking the presenters today that we had for both the calendar committee and the strategic plan. The discussions that we had on the board today were very fruitful, much needed, and I look forward to having more discussions on the dais like we did today. I want to talk specifically about the strategic plan for just a minute because it is really important that we continue moving forward, developing a strategic plan for our entire district, but particularly looking at what we've had in the past and what we're moving and developing and doing now. We need to set measurable goals that align with student achievement and school safety. And so it is my hope moving forward with this strategic plan that we're going to see more and more and more of that as we are collecting data and being able to use that data to affirm that indeed we are doing what we said that we're going to do in our strategic plans. I want to talk to the teachers and students for a minute. We made it to the halfway point. We're now in February. And I just want you guys to keep striving for excellence. Thank you for showing up every day and for dedicating your very best as educators and students, because we wouldn't have a school system if it wasn't for the students that showed up and the educators that were dedicated to teaching them. I, too, went to the Noah Webster training with Board Member Slingloff, and everything that she said is true. We received excellent training. I'm very grateful to go and learn more about how we can be the best board members that we can possibly be. And the training that we received was cutting edge and on point, and I look forward to going to that training again next year. I had the distinct pleasure of going to an event last week at, that had to do with gun violence awareness. It was at Nansemond River High School. I unfortunately could not stay for the entire time. I had another event that I was supposed to be at, but the speakers they had there were excellent. The topics they covered were very timely. And I'm looking forward to going to the next event that they have for that, because it is something that we need to have in the forefront of conversation. Gun violence is an issue. It is an issue in our city, and it is something that we have to talk about, not just out in the communities, but we also need to engage in that conversation in the school system. I have had the distinct privilege of being part of a tutoring program through my church, Southside Baptist, for the last 8 or 9 months. Young Navigators launched a tutoring program, and we partner with Kilby Shores. And every Wednesday, we have students that come and are dropped off, and we get to work with it. And it has been a distinct pleasure that families at Kilby Shores would entrust us. And there's 12 of us strong that show up every Wednesday. But being able to partner in the community like that in a different aspect is really been wonderful. And I just look forward to not only finishing this year, but maybe helping other organizations or churches in the area to start their own Young Navigators, so that we as a community can come around the school system and help provide students who need a little bit of extra help be successful. So I thank you all for being here tonight, and blessings to all of you, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Vice Chair Howell?
Good evening. I first would like to start, I'll echo the thank you to Believers Church. That's my home church, so I'm proud to be part of a church on the give and now on the receiving end of the giving. With it being School Board Member Appreciation Month, I just want to thank my fellow board members, Ms. Byram, for your wisdom and guidance, Dr. Buck for your many years of service, Karen for your leadership, Dawn Marie, the ferocity with which you approach everything, Mr. Riddick, the thought you're putting into your role of service, and Kim, your willingness to learn and your positivity encouragement of me. Parents, there were 300 plus, according to Ms. Dickens, 300 plus total community engagement events and activities throughout the school division in the first and second 9 weeks. That's a plethora of opportunity to get involved in your kiddos' lives as far as school is concerned. So I would encourage you, whether it's an event at the school that your child attends, or a district-wide event like Parents and Partners, which I also attended, find something that is accessible to you, that works with your schedule, and get involved and learn more about how you can be the greatest support for your students. As far as board business goes, I attended the Capitol Conference at the end of January and learned a lot about potential upcoming legislation. Heard a bit of a scary presentation about vaping and what's really in that stuff and what it's doing to our kiddos. And I think we all have a hint of that, but it was really eye-opening how deep the science went in this particular presentation. As I said, I attended Parents and Partners this past weekend at Kings Fork Middle School, and there was so much there to bring fruit and to educate and support our families. And so I would love to see the attendance in that event grow. I'd love for the families to come and participate together. I believe that's all that I have for this evening, so thank you all and good night.
Thank you. Everyone has pretty much said everything that I wanted to say. But thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, those who are here in person and those who are watching us online. Thank you so much for engaging with us. Dr. Gordon, thank you for all that you do, putting our students and our staff and community first, along with your amazing cabinet. And because of our staff, the teachers' assistants, the cafeteria workers, the ones who make sure that our schools are clean, the bus drivers, the ones who take care of the grounds, our security officers. Thank you. That's the team. That's what makes SPS so great, because we all work together. I attended the Fred Cherry, as Dr. Buck said, and the band was the band was amazing, and we will hopefully get a chance to hear them really, really soon. So stay tuned, because it will be a treat for that middle school to sound almost like a high school band. So once they go to high school, we know we will continue to get all the awards that we're already receiving. I also had the pleasure of going to the CTE conference where Mr. Skinner did an amazing job. The students were engaged. They were doing manicures. I needed a fill-in, but I didn't have time to get one when I was there. Cooking, and they were doing CPR on the test dummies, so no one died. The dummies are still living. So they did a great, great job. And from that, I went to Southwestern. They had a health and wellness where the whole school had vendors all around. They were dancing, exercise, they had safety awareness, they had the heart, which I appreciate everyone who got the memo and wore their red up here, because it is Healthy Heart Month. So thank you all for doing that, and I appreciate all the board members for your input. We are all different. We don't only have different boroughs, we are different people. And like Dr. Brooks-Buck said, our boroughs are different. There's different needs, but one thing for sure, they are human beings. They are people that we need to care about. Their heart beats like our heart beats. And let's just make sure that the hearts that God has allowed us to beat every second, or however it's beating, that is beating something positive and not anything negative. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate you. We're going to continue to make sure that our schools are as safe as we can possibly make them. If you see something, let us know. Don't wait until a month or two and say, well, I saw this 2 months ago. When you see something, let us know so we can try to handle it and take care of it. That's how we get the solutions. Our team, our staff is willing to see what they have to do to get things right. So don't hold things back from us. I appreciate the gun safety. I learned a lot from that, where we have gangs actually storing guns in bushes in the neighborhoods. They're storing guns in bushes in the neighborhood. So just in case you need one, go by the evergreen and pick up one. I mean, this is what they're saying. And I say it all the time, we need to get our village back. It's our village. We need to all take care of our kids, not just one. We need to take care of our neighborhoods. Because if they see that we're serious, those things may not happen as much, or we can just get rid of it if they see we can't be afraid. We have to go out there and be bold about it, and we can do it by working together. Again, I appreciate you, and now can I have a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Who was that?
Jinx.
So I think it was properly moved by, everybody did it at the same time. That's why, was it a motion for adjournment? I need a motion for adjournment.
Move to approve.
Thank you. So it was moved by Dr. Brooks-Buck and second by Dr. Brittenham. Can we vote, please?
Board members, please vote. Motion passed.
Adjourn. Thank you.